What's one takeaway you got from shadowing Gary and one takeaway you got from shadowing Alex?
Alex, the level of effort that you need to put into a product to make it great. From Gary is that doing the right thing is always the right thing, even when it's not in your short-term advantage.
Caleb, if you, Gary, or Alex were able to download Mr. Beast's brain and your next video could be a guaranteed banger, 50 million views, would you go down that route or would you still go ahead and create that niche video within your expertise?
For me, I would do the latter.
Gary was pulling in 1.7 million YouTube views a month. Alex is pulling in like 14.5 million a month.
He is not a creator in any way, shape, or form. He is a businessman who is having what he does documented. Man, I would love to make this free content for people. It's probably around 5.5 to 6.5 hours long. I spent 15 grand on it. Everyone's gonna be like, why did you? It's like, because what competitor of mine selling for 10 grand and they put out completely for free? Andy, what's up, dog?
Hello, Caleb. How are you?
Amazing, how are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. What time is it over there? Whereabouts are you based at the moment?
I am in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's 4:45.
Is it starting to get warmer? Is summer creeping in yet?
Not quite. Well, I mean, it's warming up a little bit, but it's still pretty fucking cold right now. What about you?
We're going into autumn, so it's starting to rain. I checked the weather this week. There's going to be a day that is 37 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's going to be a really hot day.
Wow. Okay, yeah.
So we're sort of going through the season of like high highs, low lows, and I think it'll probably even out by the time winter hits.
Hmm. Interesting. Oh, winter. Okay, so understood. So you're coming out of summer.
That's
You're in
it.
fall, going into winter.
Yes.
Crazy. That's fucking wild. It's amazing the way that like the world and things of that nature work. So fucking wild.
Yeah, it's like the complete opposite. The time zones are opposite. The weathers are opposite. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Dude, please tell me about what you want to discuss and everything.
Perfect. How I first came across you is I've always been a big Gary Vee fan. Then over the last 2 years, I've got into a lot of Alex Hormozi's content. And then I think I saw you on a podcast as sort of the guy that's sort of the behind the scenes guy for these two creators that I love. And that's how I first came across you, Caleb. So I've had you on the Excel sheet of someone that I've wanted to have on the show for quite some time now. So I'm really grateful that you've been able to make some time and come on today.
Well, thank you for having me, dude. I appreciate it. That was probably Jeremy Mary's podcast, the Backstage Careers one.
I think so, yeah.
Nice.
And
Yeah,
then
he's great. That's a great dude, as a side note.
yesterday I just finished the YouTube video you had, that 1 hour video
Oh,
sharing
yeah.
your story. I loved it. Everything from the thing that stuck with me was your story about you focusing on Pure Wow, whereas Derek sort of hung around with the Vayner team, and that was such a like I feel like that was like the nugget of the video.
That's cool. Oh, that's awesome to hear, dude. Thanks for watching it. I appreciate that.
No, most definitely. So yeah, I guess Caleb, what have you been focused on for the last 6 months? How long ago did you go ahead and sort of go off on your own?
Yeah, I don't even know how long it's been. I guess it's been about 4.5 months now. So middle of November, I branched out and started building my own consulting firm. And the first probably month and a half, honestly, all of November and December, I kind of was just testing offers and seeing in private like what was hitting, what were people needing. And before the end of the year really kicked in, right before Christmas, I felt like, okay, cool, I got some shit that I feel very confident in. So I started to make it more public that I was taking on a select few clients and just slowly started working through a pretty insane amount of discovery calls. I made an announcement on LinkedIn, and nobody was more surprised with the inbound than me. I had basically between December and probably second or third week of January, I had about 100 different discovery calls. It was absurd. And I learned a ton doing that. And so, yeah, just been building my consulting firm. We have some really incredible clients that I'm stoked on what we're doing for this year. We have a few lined up. We typically operate in 9 month or 12 month increments. And so we have a lot of amazing clients right now. And then we have some clients lined up for Q4 and everything after that.
Wow, yeah, and I sort of I remember in your video you talked about always having a wait list and sort of you had a big client that dropped off and you had to let go some friends that you were employing and you're like,
Yeah.
never again.
Oh, dude, that was the most brutal lesson. By the way, if you hear anything in the background, it's my puppy. If he gets loud, I will I will pop out real quick and I'll move him and stuff. But he's kind of like the uh the third member of the Ralston team unofficially here. Um, but yeah, what was the question again? Sorry.
I think you sort of answered it. My next question was going to be during the whole discovery call process, was that you just trying to test the market to see what people needed, or were you actually closing and bringing on clients over those 100 calls?
So I expected to just be learning, but I learned very quickly. The first out of the first three calls, we signed two clients. It was insane. So I was like, well, shit, I probably could have charged more, but whatever. It is what it is. And yeah, it was like a very, very interesting learning. And like, dude, I mean, I'll tell you, I said it before, but nobody was more surprised than me. A moment of vulnerability for you here. Like, I tend to be the character that thinks, I default to thinking lower of myself, not higher. I don't think that there's people out there that have worked with me or know me well that would say like, "Oh yeah, Caleb's like super cocky" or anything like that. And this process for me was like realizing, "Oh wow, I knew there was demand, right? I had a lot of interesting characters in my inbox. That's why the decision was made. But I don't know, I was still surprised at the volume of people that were like, "Hey, in some way, we want to work with you." And a lot of them were like, we probably can't afford you or whatever and stuff. And so that was also an interesting learning. Like right now, I don't have like a mass market offer. I don't have a low ticket offer. We just have our consulting offers. So it's like right now I'm going through the process, again, being very transparent with you. Like I'm learning and trying to figure out like, okay, what should I do like a monthly call that people can pay like a low ticket, amount for and they show up and they can ask me questions like what does that look like for me? And so that's been kind of the interesting journey that I'm on right now. And that's been something that I've never really touched in any roles in-house that I had before, right? Like I was never part of the offer creation. And now I am.
Talking about offers, sort of working side by side with Gary, Hormozi, I guess you would have been surrounded by offers. Like you would have been in the agency world where they had monthly retainers. You would have been in this sort of info product space where it might have been like a one-time setup fee, 25K, I'll work with you for the next 3 months. Or it could have been just a 3K monthly ongoing social media management. Where did you end up landing on, Caleb, or what do you think is going to work best for you?
Yeah. So basically, God, how do you describe your offers without sounding like I'm trying to sell people listening? I'm not trying to sell anybody, but I'll just tell you what the offers are. We have a ultra high ticket offer. This is our consulting package. We have a six process that we run people through our clients and everything. And so this is where basically we're identifying what are the problems, what are the brand threats, what are the constraints in the process? Like, are we having an issue where we're filming a ton of content, we're capturing great, but the bottleneck is we're not getting anything edited, or vice versa, right? And so we're identifying those, and then we're developing the full plan for our clients to be able to run with, and then we're providing directional support, right? So like a lot of people, a huge issue is maybe they know what to do, but then there's all these little obstacles that pop up in the way, right? Like, for example, if you're going to go on a backpacking trip and you plan it knowing the weekend is going to be sunny and all of a sudden it rains, right? If you're not experienced, might not know what equipment, what gear to swap out in your pack to make this an enjoyable experience. Okay. And so that's what we try to do is we give them a plan and then we try to provide them the support along the way to be able to tackle. Because I mean, you know how it is. You come up with a plan, but everything changes the moment that you start actually acting.
Interesting. And did you push sort of the discovery call mainly on LinkedIn, Instagram? Where do you think the most of the leads came in?
I love this question. I think I have gotten, I don't want to pretend like this has been intentional because it hasn't. I think I unintentionally built not a large brand. I don't think there's a lot of people that know who I am, but there was enough people behind the scenes or the actual characters wanting to build their own brand who knew who I was because I've done a couple random podcasts or people I've worked for mentioned me in content and stuff like that. And I think that there was already a level of trust that was established. So like I want to get that out out of the way right away. Like that's unique. And I got lucky with that, right? Like I worked my face off to earn it. So I don't want that to be misunderstood. But it wasn't like I was intentionally crafting something or building this brand that later I would transact on. You know, I, I really wasn't. And so when I made the post on Instagram, when I made the post on LinkedIn, I'd say leads probably primarily came in through LinkedIn, I would say. But there was a decent amount of people on Instagram that had been sitting in my DM request box waiting that I ignored, didn't see, whatever, that had asked for consulting work 2 or 3 years, 5 years prior. And they were like, oh, this is my opportunity. So then they came in, they submitted the form and all that shit on the website. So I think it was a little bit of both, but it had far less to do, in my opinion, with the moment that I posted it on the platforms and a lot more to do with the body of work that I had been building for the 16 years leading up to that moment.
Interesting.
So there was no hack or tactic that I put into place with those posts, right? It was, I think, enough people knew of what I had done previously that when I made them aware that I was taking on clients, they were like, sign me up.
On one of your recent podcasts, you talked about brand, and I think also in your video as well, you sort of really articulated what branding meant really well. Like another person I think of is like D-Rock. D-Rock recently sort of, oh not recently, but he's sort of gone off on his own. And when I think of D-Rock, I think of someone that definitely would know the behind the scenes of creating a daily vlog, editing, pumping out daily videos, social, sort of would have a gist of what Gary's team looks like behind the scenes. But when I think of you, Caleb, I think of you building teams, building systems, building SOPs. You've somehow like subconsciously crafted a brand. Maybe it's you being with Alex Hormozi, and that somehow sort of brings that vision in. But that was quite interesting. You've sort of built a brand where people automatically trust that you can turn them into like a Hormozi.
I think, again, not too intentional, but I erred on the side of any time that I did make a public post, it was usually around the team, building a team, hiring, mentorship, right? Like things of that nature. And so, because of my lack of frequency on ever communicating publicly, the little bit that I put out there, it was mostly geared towards that. Mainly because, like, I started to discover that was a huge passion of mine that I didn't know existed, right? I went from being a high performance individual contributor who got all my worth, all my value, all my validation off of that. At the end of the day, being like, I just made fucking 9 shorts and I posted them all. Not only am I editing them, I'm the one that's running the channel, right? Like that's what I got my excitement from. Then I had to switch over to, well, that's no longer happening. I'm not the one that's churning out these videos. I now have to find my fulfillment and my validation and passion when the team crushes it. And so I think probably, again, unintentionally, I don't want to sound like this was like some master plan. I probably just talked more about that shit. And even my brain has always been a little bit more like I'm a creative through and through, but I would say I'm a more operationally sound creative. I'm not a project manager. Make sure that's clear. But I do think that I have historically been a little bit more organized, a little bit better at communication, a little bit more thoughtful about like consequential thinking with my creative than maybe the average bear. And so I'm sure subtly that comes through when the few times that I've talked publicly.
With that sort of mindset, I remember Alex Hormozi posting a video talking about how when he did general videos, it would get more views, but it was sort of like the value per subscriber was much less. But when he did business videos, less views, but higher value per viewer. Do you plan on creating niche content as you sort of start building out your personal brand? I guess, what's your thoughts on content creation?
I think the idea of niching down is really smart for short term, terrible for long term. I think anyone who advises that you do that forever hasn't been doing this game very long. They're just new to it. So they don't realize what that actually plays out to. If you niche down and only talk about one thing for fucking ever, you're going to get bored of what you talk about. You're going to hate it, and your audience will too, because you're a one dimensional human. So Gary talks about how you are the niche, right? And I think that is the most powerful way and frame for people to have. Now, people misunderstand this and they apply it sometimes too early or all on one platform. I like to think of a brand and platform strategy separate. So you are the niche is a brand strategy, not a platform strategy. People just misunderstand it, right? They don't understand that you are the niche is the brand, the overarching brand strategy, but how you communicate yourself can be different on different platforms, right? Just like Andy, for example, if you're going to right now, we're doing this podcast and you're showing up, you are Andy, but you're showing up one way. If you go and get beers tonight with the boys, you're going to show up a slightly different way. And then if you get brunch with your mom tomorrow, another way, right? You're still Andy in all these scenarios, but given the context of where you are, you're going to use different lingo, different language, and talk about different subject matter. You might talk about the same shit. You might spend more time on one topic in one scenario than in another scenario. The platforms are the same. The platforms are the scenarios, and the brand is you. You show up to all these platforms as Andy. But on LinkedIn, you're going to emphasize different parts of Andy than you would on Instagram versus TikTok versus YouTube versus Facebook, whatever, right? Pinterest, all the different shits. So that's how I recommend people think about it. So to answer your question, I will niche down in the beginning. So the majority, almost all of my content will be around brand, organic content, strategy, and team. Okay, so those will be my three main pillars. But what I will do is I will tastefully interject my other passions into it. So for example, there's a video that'll be dropping April 4th that I am unbelievably excited for. I don't think that there is a single video on YouTube to this level of depth on this subject matter. That's all I will say about it. But in one of the scenes in the video, I have one of my Harleys in the background because that's part of who I am. And I believe that you want to give your audience as many at-bats to connect with you as possible. I call it interest stacking. Are you down with me going down this little rabbit hole real quick here? Sick. All right, Andy, let's go down the rabbit hole. So the way I think of it is like when you start out at a new company, right? You get a new job at a new organization. And when you start out there, you are probably a little bit more shy. People don't know shit about you, right? All you have in common with your coworkers is that we all work here. And then 2 months, 3 months, whenever you get comfortable, you reveal something about yourself. Let's say, for example, you reveal the fact that you love Mel Robbins and you love her podcast. And all of a sudden you find out, oh shit, Sarah also loves Mel Robbins. Now, suddenly, you and Sarah are work homies. You become closer in relationship because you have more than one thing in common. Now, if I were to say, Andy, let's look at your friends, right? You're going to have acquaintances, and those are people that you have a few more things in common. As we get closer in your friendship pool, it's more likely that you have many things in common, okay? The more interests you have in common, typically, not a rule, observation, the more likely it is that they are closer to you. I think building an audience online is the same way. And so if I were to only talk about brand and content strategy, for example, well, cool. People will only know me for that. And so they will only get so close to me. But if I all of a sudden start revealing how much I like Harleys or how much I like Miller High Life or whatever, all of a sudden, metal, right? Hardcore. I'm really into hardcore. When I wear, I'm going down real rabbit hole here, but like I have certain band hats that I wear. A Varials hat is one, for example. And I go into a certain kind of bar, I know I'm going to get a free drink because the bartender sees it and goes, Varials, oh, you're into Philadelphia hardcore? Boom, different level of connection. Again, with the audience, it's the same way, right? Whether we love him, we hate him, or we don't give a fuck, Joe Rogan does this perfectly. He talks about so many different subjects. So if you're into MMA, cool, you're probably going to like his podcast. If you like comedy, you're going to like it. If you like health optimization, you'll like it. If you like all of those, you're probably going to be a super fan. And you're there less because of the subject matter and more about Joe's take on the subject matter. Does that make sense?
It does.
So start niched down and expand over time. Because if you talk about the same damn thing every fucking day, if you're in a relationship, for example, your partner is going to fucking hate you. Your audience will too. Or more than likely, they will just get fatigued. and they will no longer search your content out. And the moment the algorithm changes, it's no longer going to be served to them, and they don't give a fuck. So they're not looking for you.
Wow. How do you go about intentionally, I guess, widening the net? Is it just all about doing the same topic? The moment you see drops in views, change it up?
Love this question. I think there's two ways. One is when you gain expertise on something new. And so then you, like 4 years ago, you never saw me talking about building a team or hiring because I hadn't done it. Not enough to talk about it, that's for fucking sure. But now I feel really damn good talking about it, right? And so now you'll hear me talk about it loudly and a lot more, right? Like right now, you ain't gonna hear me ever making content about like how to craft a good offer. Like I don't fucking know shit about that. But maybe in 2 years after doing this, or 3 years or 4 years, maybe I'll be like, yeah, I have something to say about this, right? So I think it's either you increase your knowledge and expertise on something, or you're going to start to learn something new and you take people on the learning journey. You do not fucking lie and bullshit about being an expert on something that you read a fucking book about yesterday. Like that's it. No, you frame it as you are the student and you're going to bring people on your learning journey and share that journey with them. And so it's not from the place of an expert of what you should do. It's here's what I'm trying to accomplish. Here's what I'm learning right now. Here's where I fucked up. And here's where I did it right. And that's the frame. That's another way that you can expand the subject matter you talk about. Now, I guess there is a third, which is just like you're fucking interested in it, right? Like I could, if I wanted to, in 3 months, start making videos about my Harleys. Not like with them in the video, but I could make videos breaking down the performance and how I've swapped out the fucking camshafts in my Road King to increase my horsepower by 3. Nobody that is following me for the other shit wants to see that. I'm not going to make that content. So the way I think about it is you want to integrate your other interests into the content. So if you like wine, maybe in your videos, you're drinking wine and you mention that, right? Maybe for me, some of my short form videos aren't me just sitting down talking to the camera. Maybe it's me on my bike riding and talking. That'd be kind of cool. So that's kind of how I think about adding in new subject matter. It's less about like the views going down, and it's more about making sure you understand the frame you're going to communicate this new subject matter in. Expert or student.
Back in 2019, sort of like 7 years ago, I had a YouTube channel. I was teaching people about e-commerce, dropshipping, Facebook ads. I was dropping a video every single day for like 3 years straight. I had 900 videos on this topic. I think I had like 25,000 subscribers. The value per subscriber was really high. It was like a small niche channel, but I was burnt out. I did not want to talk about e-com anymore. And then I started diversifying. I started creating vlogs, creating mindset content, talk about hiring, talk about sales, book reviews, podcasts, and it didn't happen instantly, but the channel just slowly died out. And as it died out, the revenue started drying up. I guess, what did I do wrong? And hearing your advice, if I stayed in the e-com niche and I did another 900 videos, I probably would have gotten audience fatigue, or I would have just plateaued and just stayed where I was. So that wasn't an option. Yeah, I guess what happened?
Well, first thing that I would say is maybe you didn't do anything wrong. I think that it would be unreasonable for us to, we're asking for, maybe I'm wrong here, but I almost think we're asking for too much there, right? Like I get to make all the videos that I want about whatever I want. I don't have a consistent output. There's not like a consistent thing that the audience can expect. I'm just going to make whatever I want, whenever I want. And I'm going to also make the money that I want. It's like, I think we're asking too much there. So I think it's either, because to be clear, niching down is definitely the fastest way to grow on these platforms. The platforms then know what audience to serve your content to every time, right? The audience knows what to expect. So niching down is the best short-term strategy. I just believe that there's 1 out of 10 of people that can just do it for the rest of their life. But 9 out of 10, this is a random number I'm pulling out of my ass right now, but the majority of creators I have talked to that never evolve, I'm talking to them after they've retired. because they were fucking done with it, right? They were over it. So for you, one thing that hindsight's 2020, but we could look back and see like, is there a way that we could make producing that content more fun for you? So like, let's say for example, you love cooking steaks. Well, could you have been cooking a steak while you share this information and share this knowledge, right? Like something you're seeing a fuckload of these entrepreneur bros on Instagram do right now. And I got nothing against that. I'm just not a golf guy, but like they're golfing while they're talking about content, while they're sharing shit. What are they doing? They're pairing something they enjoy with something maybe they don't enjoy, right? But the way that brand works is if you do that enough times, you will inherently associate filming with the good vibes and good feelings of the thing that you love doing. It's why, like a nutritionist, if they're trying to get you to develop the habit of walking in the morning, they will probably ask you, well, what do you do right now in the morning? Well, I have a biscuit with my coffee. Like, cool. Let's take that biscuit and that coffee on the walk. Pair something that you do like with something you don't like. And if you do it consistently enough, your brain will start to associate the good feelings with the thing you like with the thing that you previously did not. And so that would be the biggest thing that I would tackle, Andy, is like, how can we make making content more fun for you, right? The other is like, are we just making content on YouTube? Could we start posting on Instagram and show a little bit more things that surround your core? You love, going and photographing kangaroos in the outback. Cool. Maybe you can start to show that on your Instagram. I think that the key here is knowing what is your objective. If your objective is just purely to make the most amount of money, then yes, niching down and consistently making that awesome. But if you're maximizing and optimizing for like enjoying life, well then cool. Maybe that means that you make a little bit less, but that's okay.
What's your thoughts on the whole documenting versus creating approach? Like option one, you can just document, you can record your podcast, your sales calls, your discovery calls, your consulting calls, go through them, clip up interesting value-based segments and post these clips. Or you can go out of your way and create a piece of content of you talking about that thing you're going to share. Obviously, I guess the first option seems nice because you're just repurposing what you're doing day to day. You're not going out of your way to create content. Yeah, what's your thoughts there, Caleb?
I think it is the best way to start because it is the lowest barrier to entry. I also think it's something that's smart, to maintain because I think that we live in a world where a lot of people talk about what they do but never demonstrate it. So the more that you can demonstrate yourself in action, I mean, think of how many people think that like I don't right now, but if I had a camera right here filming a 3/4 angle here, how many people in the comments are gonna be like, he's not on a fucking podcast, right? So demonstrate that like you are actually doing the fucking thing you're saying you're doing for one. So I think it's valuable for that. The real is that is not the best strategy to grow on platforms, right? The best strategy is to make content that the platforms prefer. I call it platform native content. So you want to do that. That is where you want to get to the quickest, and probably not with all channels, unless you have a team of 20. If you have one person on your team helping you, you're going to take this approach to one platform at a time. And what I would recommend doing is still keeping the philosophy of document, don't create. It just doesn't, document, don't create doesn't mean have a camera on you at all times. It means talk about the things that you have done rather than manufacturing and coming up with new shit. So maybe instead of filming all of the calls, maybe you just take notes and you look at your calendar on Friday, write a couple of scripts and film on Saturday based on what happened. That's what I do. The videos that I'm producing they're documenting. It just might not be documented in the moment, right? I am rehashing, and I tend to be somebody who no matter what, I film selfie videos, I film or I record voice notes, I give notes to myself to help myself in the future be able to talk about something with more depth and detail. But like, it doesn't mean having a camera around you all the time. It just means looking at what you have done and talking about it, which ultimately, if we're talking education content, that's the best stuff anyways, right? Like, I don't want to hear some hypothetical scenario. I want to hear the scenario that you walked one of your clients through, how they got success, and how you think I could do the same thing. That is going to lead me to want to buy far more than you creating some, Johnny and Sarah fake scenario.
Interesting. So hypothetically, let's say you recorded the 100 discovery calls you did, Caleb. You probably got a bunch of very interesting interactions, reactions to you giving some advice and them being mind blown. You can either go down the route of just going through that trove of content and that's like a year's worth of content, Or you can go ahead and do your high quality sit down video, lighting, chair, camera, like you did with your last video. I guess everyone would like to do the first approach. I'd like to do the first approach, but I guess I've never figured out how to make it work. So I'm like, okay, maybe I do have to roll up my sleeves and actually create high quality content, script it out.
So there's a thing in video production where it's like the reason why traditional post houses have a DP and an editor be separate is because the DP shot, the director of photography, they shot all the footage. The editor, a separate human, is going to go through and edit it. And the reason why they are separate is because if I'm the DP, I'm going to include that sexy shot that I love that maybe doesn't move the story forward. You have to kill your darlings, right? They're going to think this is so valuable. Or the worst ones are vloggers that include a moment that happened in the day that they thought was hilarious, but the audience watching is like, what the fuck is going on? Because they're missing context. You had to be there. I think a lot of people clip moments from their sales calls that they think is fucking gold and fire, but it's not. It's confusing as fuck, and I have no idea what you're saying. They think I have all this gold that I'm putting out and nobody's viewing it. I'm shadow banned or whatever the fuck. No, it's your clips suck. What you're saying is not, it's contextual for the person on the other end, I'm sure. But for the viewer over here, they have no idea what you've just said the last 15 minutes. So I think it's not that that style doesn't work. It's just that people are lazy with it. They think too highly of what they just said on a call. Like, for example, that project that I told you about, we're cutting it down tightly. The one that drops April 4th. We're cutting it down from 14 hours of raw footage. 14 hours. That video the first video I posted, now, I also am learning how to talk on camera. So to be clear, it's not like a lot of it is retakes. But like that video we posted, I think we had 3.5, 4 hours of raw footage for it that went down to 51 minutes. So like, I think the amount of assumptions people make of the value per second they're delivering, again, contextual for their client or whatever, yes, because there's so much more wrapped in. But the amount of 60-second sound bites, maybe one or two. Even people that are thinking intentionally about the content, I think they really over. So, but what I would recommend to take it a step further here, because I just gave you the problem, what's the solution? What I've done is I've recorded all of those calls and then I transcribe all of them and I upload them to my ChatGPT agent and I have it catalog all of this, right? And so I have a database of Caleb's brain, essentially. And what this allows me to do is I'm not going through the calls and being like, all right, what was the question they asked me? And I'm going to use that as a short prompt. Nah. What I'm doing is I'm using it to help me when I write a script, then I upload the script and I say, what else around this topic or this problem have I discussed on podcasts, on Zoom calls, on roundtable, whatever videos that I've done that maybe I forgot to include here so I can add more depth and detail. Does that make sense?
It does. I guess what made you opt in for the option of let me go ahead and create a video from scratch, script it out, use the discovery calls as a knowledge bank versus actually just rehashing that and pumping out infinite amount of content with 100 hours worth of discovery calls?
Because I think that when everybody is doing one thing, I want to do the exact opposite. So everybody is doing that right now. All my counterparts show up in a dark room with a blue light and a red light in their background, and they all do the same fucking thing. They record their community calls, which is great. This is sounding like I'm slamming on them. I'm not. I'm just saying they all look the same. They all look the same. Like, dude, if you were to take somebody that didn't give a fuck about this space at all, just a normal human, and show them the top 100 YouTube channels for content creation, they'd be like, it looks like it's like 10 channels. Everything looks the same. And so I just want to stand out. That's all. And I'm on a mission and journey of figuring out what that is. I'm not saying that what I'm doing right now is exactly that. That's not final state at all. What we will produce in October 2025 will be infinitely better, right? Because I'll have more learnings and data. I make quick subjective calls and I don't debate them. And then I put it out into the market to see, I thought that first video was going to flop, for example. I thought it was going to be maybe 500 views. So I think, I took us on a little journey there, but the answer is like, okay, let's dive into this for a second, because I actually think it's super important. There are a couple of different styles of YouTube videos and short form edits that are running around the internet right now, and they are used by the masses. Do you think that you making your content in that way is going to stand out? No. Maybe what you're doing is you're like, okay, cool. I know this is more effective at garnering attention. So maybe you get more views, but you get more views as a lookalike, as a number two or a number three, rather than being the person that's driving innovation. Like, I don't watch people in my space. Like, you will never catch me watching another person talking about brand and content on YouTube, watching their videos. Because I don't, not that I can't learn. I'll listen to a podcast at most, but I don't want that infiltrating my mind and me making the same shit that they're. Because, like, if you were to look, like, taking a step out of it for a second, like, a lot of people are like really deep in it. When the average person looks at the business creator space, they all look the fucking same, you know? And so I think for me, knowing that people are trying to play the put out a video or two a week on YouTube that are 15 to 30 minutes in the same fucking setting that everybody else is in. I wanted to put something out that was longer, we put more effort into, and I think you'll see, our first 5 videos this year will probably be pretty fucking ridiculously long, right? We're putting a whole month. We're one video a month right now. We're putting a whole month into every single project. That April 4th video, it's a 39-page outline that I wrote. Like, it's extensive, And so, like, in a world where everyone's going high volume right now, I want to go high effort. And I distinguish that because I wouldn't want to subjectively say that it's high quality. I don't decide that, you do. That was
With
a
your
mouthful.
with the last video that you just made, that you released, how did you go about sort of? Did you split test the titles, the thumbnails? Did you use the YouTube algorithm? Did you run Facebook ads to test it, or
So we love a tool called oneof10.com. If you haven't heard of it, it should become your best friend if you make YouTube content. It's a great way to see overperforming content from other channels. And what I like to do is look at it and not make the same exact video because I'm not looking in my niche. I like to look at other industries and niches, right? So, like, video gamers, for example, I love. And what you want to do is borrow their packaging format. Okay. So, I mean, one that you're seeing everybody on YouTube make is call it, I did one kind of similar, not exactly the same, but call it like 10 years of marketing advice in 31 minutes, right? That all started from a different niche. And then now everybody does it, so it's not very effective or doesn't stand out anymore. But that's what I like to do. So that's what we did. We just looked at, some shit. But also, I would tell people if they are going to pay attention to my content this year, I would not necessarily say do what I do. More like do what I say, not what I do. I'm going about this very differently because I'm making some bets and some tests. I've had a lot of things that I've wanted to do over the last 6 years that are pretty wild and aggressive. And, that I've worked for companies that have employees they got to pay, right? And so, like, the amount of risk tolerance versus me with a two-man operation is different. So, like, I'm going to be trying weird shit with the content this year. So just to put that out there, like, it's not necessarily, I'm not saying it's the best practice. Like, my YouTube thumbnail, I have probably 20 people that have sent me more optimized YouTube thumbnails. I'm like, trust me, I know, I, you know, I don't have to spell it out. I know what good thumbnail would murder, right? On that subject matter. Like, I know what would do better, but I'm not trying to build my brand that way. I don't want to look like everybody else on YouTube.
tell me about that bet? So you were like, hey, I know the exact title and thumbnail that would get this video much, much more views, but actually I'm going to do it differently and get less views. What was the bet there, Caleb?
I want to build my brand on my own merit, not off of everybody else's names. And I want the work to speak more than the names to speak. I want to feel like at the end of the day, I'm proud of what I built. I didn't over leverage other people. I just did work that spoke for itself. I also believe that the way that brand works is if I put out videos that look like a certain type of creator enough times, I will get lumped into that group. And am I saying, one, I'm being very vague about what group, but am I saying this group that I'm very cryptically talking about is bad? No, there's nothing wrong. I don't know shit. I am not the moral compass. I just know that I don't want to be in that group. I want to be of a different category. And in order to be of a different category, I have to operate much differently. And I'm not trying to get the masses to know who I am. That's not my goal. I'm trying to get the players in the game, the people that are building the businesses, that run the big businesses. I want them to know who I am. I don't need their audience to know who I am. And in fact, my life will be a lot better if they don't.
Caleb, with content creation, how do you go about it in a way where it compounds, where it's not this hamster wheel where you're constantly having to create and film content for the rest of your life, and the moment you stop, views drop, revenue dries up? And I guess that's sort of the perspective I remember Alex Hormozi talking about. That's what he previously thought, but then he somehow learned and understood that actually content is compounding somehow. But then the moment he stops creating content, doesn't all views stop and revenues like just will dip? And obviously there'll be the trickle effect, but what does he mean by it compounding?
Well, the reality is 99.9% of creators online, if they stopped making content, their revenue, views, everything will go down. Now, the ones that built it correctly, or what I would define as correctly, it'll go down less. But like, I mean, there's no way around it. Like it'll go down. So anybody that says otherwise is wrong. Like it will. But the very interesting thing, in my opinion, is I'm going to peel back the curtain and explain something that I think is very, very powerful. You asked me kind of around my strategy and everything like that, and why I do less of the calls, like clips from calls or whatever, because oftentimes in those we're talking tactics, and tactics are irrelevant. They fade immediately. As soon as everyone becomes aware of it, it no longer works, right? There was a caption style that everyone was doing. And then once everybody started doing it, guess who stopped doing it? We did, right? Because we wanted to lead the next one. But if everyone's doing it, then it's not going to work. So, shit, help me come back to where I was.
We're
Because
talking
this was
about
about to get.
compounding, views
Yeah.
dropping.
Thank you. Thank you. So, evergreen content, I believe, is principles based, not tactics based. So, it's not talking about how, hey, guess what? Instagram is now favoring carousels. Add a song to your carousel and it will show up in the Reels tab. It's like, yeah, okay, cool. You and a million other creators are informing me of this. But if you share principles of how to adapt to algorithm changes, to preference changes by the platform, you're making content that will be relevant 10 years down the road. So, in a world where everyone talks about trending topics and jumping on those things, that's great for short-term growth. But for a brand that has value to the audience over a long period of time, you want more evergreen content, right? Like the video that we're going to release April 4th. Sorry, I keep mentioning it. I promise I'm not trying to be like annoying about it, but that video is 95% principle based. There's probably about 5% of it that's tactics. And it's just because like I was so excited in the moment that I was like, well, here's something that right now is relevant. But I literally will say, as of Tuesday, March 11th, 5:32 p.m. Pacific time, this is a tactic that's relevant. Because I don't want to give them Bobo advice that's not going to be relevant down the road, you know? So I think to get compounding returns on your organic content, you need to make sure that you're teaching principles, not tactics. That way the video is still getting surfaced in 2 or 3 years.
So I guess to solidify that point, right now there's a current trend of creators doing the whole how to build a six-figure business in 51 minutes. And then there's like a thumbnail of like this blueprint, and then they're literally gonna write it on a whiteboard, and everyone's doing this. Are they giving a general principle on how to make six figures in 51 minutes? Or is that a tactic? Is this an evergreen video? Is this not? Is this just trend hopping? What is this?
For 99% of the people making that, it's clickbait. For the 1% that actually know what the fuck they're talking about, this is, I know, a very strong opinion, but they're doing value bait. So it's a baity title, but they deliver on it. The other majority, I guarantee, and I haven't watched all of them, but I guarantee, if I watch that and do everything they say, I'm not fucking building a $1 million business in 51 minutes. Like, so I guess I would say that like there's intent and then there's outcome. Their intent was probably evergreen, but the actual outcome of it probably was not evergreen. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
I think like we as the creator do not determine whether or not it's evergreen ultimately, right? It's the audience. If the audience is still watching this 2, 3 years down the road. Like a great example of this is Think Media, Sean Cannell's page. Like, dude, I search for like gear shit and I get videos surfaced from 3 or 4 years ago from them. Clearly, that was a valuable evergreen piece of content.
What's your thoughts on the value per minute sort of theory versus the packaging theory? You know, with the packaging theory within the first 30 seconds, hey, watch to the end because I want to give you something. Hey, if you don't watch this, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life. Versus values per minute, remove all the sort of cliffhanging stuff and just give value. But then I guess you don't have that retention hook that pulls people through to the end. Yeah, what's your thoughts, Caleb?
Is the question, which one do I place more value on?
I guess which one would be better for long-term branding? Because I remember I was trying to create, like I'm going hard on YouTube over the last 6 months, and my first 2, 3 videos was like, let's just do value per minute. Let's just go straight into delivering on what I said on the title. And those videos didn't perform as well as the ones where I was like, okay, let me study a Mr. Beast video, copy the first 30-second hook, but obviously transition for my niche and follow the same format and have this storytelling arc to it versus let me just put as much value in as a short amount of time as possible. And those videos sort of like bombed, I think. I need to look at the stats. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe those videos actually did better, but yeah.
Well, I would say we need to know what your goal is first. What are you trying to accomplish? Okay. So that's first and foremost. I think for me, I am trying with my content, I have two goals. One, I have been asked for the last 7 years, thousands of times in my DMs, hey, do you have any resources online that I can consume that share your beliefs on brand, on organic content, team, right? And the answer has always been no. Sucks. And then they're like, do you have anybody that you would refer me to? I'm like, ugh. And a lot of these, no. Like on very select subject matter, yeah, of course, there's this person, whatever. But like holistically, no. So I'm making content, one, with the goal of helping people that will never get to work with me, right? The majority of people that are aware of my existence will never bring us on for consulting work, right? It will just never happen. They won't ever have the means to be able to do it, or it just won't make sense. Whatever, I don't care. I just am stoked at the idea of being able to help them. Okay. So that's intent number one. So I do make sure to factor that into how I make the content. Now, priority number two is creating lead flow and awareness for my consulting firm, right? And so in order to do that, I don't need to attract everybody on the street. I just need to attract the business owners, right? And that's it, right? Or the entertainers. We're working with a couple of musician entertainers this year. And like, those are the people that I need to see my content, okay? And so I believe, and this is not something backed by data. I don't have a spreadsheet to show this. This is my intuition that I'm trusting. I think the kind of clients that I am going to work with are repelled by the hardcore YouTube packaging and YouTube intros. I think they are. I think they don't take it seriously. And whether they're right or wrong about that doesn't matter. I don't think that my target audience that I'm trying to transact with will think of me in a credible way by doing that. So for me, I'm trying to go about it differently. Now, the mass audience is going to be more enticed by that kind of packaging, right? That style of, open loop, closed loop, right? And so for me, it's a delicate balance of that. So I think I'm not going to answer the question with a prescription because we need to know what the illness is. And so for anybody listening or watching this, they need to do the homework of understanding, why am I fucking doing this in the first place? And that should inform the kind of content you make, right? Like if your product that you sell is sweat wicking socks, well then, yeah, let's go for the fucking masses. But if you have a high ticket offer, you're a website designer and you redesign websites, you work with 3 clients a year on a 300K retainer. Okay. You don't need to make content for the masses, right? And so I think it's knowing who you're trying to reach and optimizing around that, not optimizing around what everybody else is, right? Like a huge mistake a lot of people made when Mr. Beast was really, like, I'd say about 2 years ago, he had already been popping for sure. But there was a moment in culture where everyone recognized, like, holy fuck, this dude is a different level. And a lot of creators in the business world, et cetera, were like, I want that. Because they weren't thinking about who am I actually trying to reach with this content? Who am I trying to optimize for? Well, if you're trying to reach business owners, for example, making videos for 12-year-olds might not be the right route.
Given that philosophy, given that you sort of want to only work with high ticket clients and you don't really want to be known, and ideally, if you don't have to be, that'd be your preference. What's the reason for you eventually wanting to go broad then? Why not stay niche forever?
Well, because I'm in this weird journey, Andy, where all of a sudden I put the first video out and I was like, holy fuck. I turned to Trevor, my content director. I was like, dude, I love this shit. Like, if we can figure out a way to build the business where we are able to take care of the money that we need. I'm not a greedy guy. I don't have ambitions of building some massive fucking empire. I have a number in mind, and when I hit that, I won't make any decisions off of finances after that. And it, by the way, it's not a big number. And for me, I'm like, man, I would love to have as much time as I can to make this free content for people. Because like what you got to see from my perspective is I've been the one making the content that is impacting millions of people for years now. And I would see how it would positively affect the people that I worked for. But I never, and I would get the DMs, I would see them, and I'd be like, wow, this is so cool that I'm helping this. Now that it's like, I'm not doing a podcast where I'm talking to somebody else, I'm not on, this is a video of just me. And people are watching it and taking action on it and sending me DMs being like, dude, I took your advice and just landed my dream job. And I'm like, holy shit, this is way cooler than I ever imagined. Like, I love this shit. So, Andy, the reason why is because I think there might be a world where I do want to like make a lot more free content, like, and I want it to reach more people, but I don't know. So, like, what you're hearing right now when I'm talking about my content creation is like, I'm very clear on the strategy of how I want to reach the target demo that I have. But long term, I'm very unclear. Something I always tell people when I work with them is like, whatever you have in mind of what we're trying to accomplish with building your brand and scaling it and scaling trust through your content, if we do this correctly, it's going to be so much bigger than you currently think it is. And so, like, I'm trying to eat my own dog food and be like, well, I think this will probably grow into something more than I can imagine right now. Or maybe not. Maybe after a year of doing it, I'll be like, you know what? That was fun. Never again. And then I just retreat to behind the camera again. I don't know, and I don't want to pretend like I do know.
Talking about the why and the why you why you're sort of creating that type of content, following people like Ryan Serhant, $1 million penthouse tour videos, they're quite flashy. It's the thumbnails are very, trendy based and you want to click on it. And I guess, I remember him talking about like those videos might attract the younger audience who has a mum or dad that can afford to buy a penthouse. And that sort of ends up happening. And I guess is Hormozi creating content that attracts that young entrepreneur today so that in 5 years time, if they have something big, they can come to him and be like, hey, like I built something thanks to your content 5 years ago. Can we work together? Is that sort of the vision and why they're going to the masses? Because these big creators, they're not creating these hyper niche videos that only entrepreneurs making a few $1 million plus would click on. They're making content that everyone can click on. Yeah, they have a high ticket offer.
Yeah, I think a lot of them probably have a book or something that is a little bit more accessible, a little bit more low ticket for sure. I won't, I can't comment on like what their current strategy is or anything like that. But what I will say is I do think that there is very few positions a brand can hold that are better than people having you on their vision board of wanting to partner with you or work with you down the road. And so thinking about TikTok, for example, whenever I think about for somebody who has an offer that's more of a high ticket offer, you're one, don't believe the myth that it's all kids. It's fucking aged the fuck up hardcore. So, but I think, yes, that is a platform that you can think about nurturing future business on more than a direct transaction happening right now. Like if I have a $400 or $500,000 consulting fee, I'm probably not going to like make a video on TikTok and like close 2 or 3 people from that video. Probably not. YouTube, we do. We do. And so that is kind of, I think, a little bit of the difference there. So yeah, I think that the big thing here, in my opinion, is you need to define what you're wanting to do with the content. So is this nurture content or is this content that we're trying to convert with, right? And then it's if you're not finding conversions are occurring, well, then either you are doing it wrong or you're targeting the wrong platform and audience.
You talked about sort of creating content that people are DMing you about, and now you'll have a video to link them to. Are the people doing this right and really creating evergreen content, creating pieces of content that have a second use other than being on YouTube and relying on search for the next few years? Like, are these videos being used in the DMs, being used in future courses? Is there a way to create content that has a second purpose other than YouTube search?
Absolutely. I think the Mr. Beast approach is this, right? So everybody, a lot of what we're talking about right now, the evergreen thing, that was the whole YouTube game up until the last probably 5 or 6 years, right? Like what Sean Cannell preaches about like ranking your videos and everything, that has always been the way to win. Mr. Beast kind of changed the whole game to where it's like you're optimizing that first 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours for performance. And it's not like you're not stumbling across his videos searching for shit, right? Like they're coming up either brand new or they're being suggested on other content that you're watching. So I think ultimately what I think is that a lot of people are putting out content that is not giving away the true information that they have to give. And what they're doing is they're putting out teasers for people to buy their shit, which I totally get. I totally get. I just think what you actually end up doing is you end up training the audience that you are not a complete teacher. You're a teacher who teaches incomplete information rather than like, oh, I tease them to go buy shit. It's like, well, no, this person just gives me enough information to make me intrigued, but not enough that I can't actually solve this problem. So now I have to go buy their shit, which is an incredible way to sell shit, as a side note.
One of the questions I wanted to ask you, Caleb, are you going to be focused on just YouTube for the next 6 months, or are you still going to do Instagram and LinkedIn? What's your thoughts on, is it better to just dial in on one platform first? What's your game plan?
So our top four platforms that we are prioritizing this year are YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and podcast. And I definitely prefer the Eye of Sauron approach. I'm a Lord of the Rings nerd, so I like to use that analogy, where you do focus on one platform at a time, right? Now, I also think that when you take the approach that I'm taking, which is not high volume, it's lower volume, it's a little harder to do that because it takes a lot longer. The feedback loop is longer. So you're not getting information as quick, so you can't make iterations as fast, right? If you're posting a YouTube every video every week, you can implement the learnings like so I am trying more of a staggered approach. So it's like 3 to 5 weeks focusing on getting YouTube up and rolling, then LinkedIn, then Instagram, then podcast, right? And so by the end of, hopefully, by the end of April, end of May, we should be consistently posting monthly on all four of those channels. It won't all roll out at once. And it's not like I'm going to separate them out over the next few months or anything like that. They'll be kind of happening overlapped. So like right now, Trevor and I are focusing heavily on what does my short form content look like? And then in the background, because I'm a sociopath, I spend my evenings and weekends trying to figure out what is my podcast. And like for me, and dude, it's the funniest thing. This is why I say like, do what I say, not what I do. I tell people, stop debating all this shit, right? Like I'm like, no, just fucking put out a podcast. Now, here I am, not listening to my own advice. I think there's some nuance and context to this. The fact that I have been the guy behind the scenes of some big brands, I think that there are, and this could be me placing this, maybe the audience isn't doing it, but I think there's a different level of expectation on what I'm going to put out, right? I also think that like I want to use my content as learnings for clients. And so like I want to test some shit that I've been curious about for years, but never had a brand that I've been able to test them out on, right? So like with podcasting, for example, I think a very interesting experiment is to think about what place do you as the host hold for your audience using the family circle? Does your audience view you as the younger sibling, the older brother, the cool aunt, the cool uncle? Like, for example, Mel Robbins, who I've mentioned now twice, I think. I love her. I think she occupies, at least for me, the cool aunt space. She is like the cool aunt, right? Like, she loves you and cares about you enough to give you these cool insights that she's garnered over her years of living and the experiences she's gone through and the research she's done. She also knows enough and loves you enough to sometimes tell you what you don't want to hear. She gives you that tough love, right? I think it's very interesting to look at podcasting. I think any platform, but I'm talking about podcasting here in this context from that lens. And so for me, I've been thinking about, what do I want to occupy? What's the relationship I want to have with my audience? What tone do I want? In my YouTube videos, I'm going for professor in class or grabbing a beer or coffee with your professor outside of class, right? No matter what, I'm in teaching mode and stuff. Some videos will feel more casual, some will feel a little bit more like, structured and stuff like that. But I don't want that to be the vibe of my podcast. I don't want my podcast to be, again, there's nothing wrong with what I'm about to say, but I don't want my podcast to be the catch-all. I don't want to just take the audio from my YouTube videos and upload it there. I want it to be like, Andy, if you're going to subscribe to me on YouTube and then also on Spotify, you're subscribing for different reasons because you're getting different value out of each of those platforms. Because I'm talking about different things or using different examples or taking a different approach or tone or structure to my pod than a YouTube video. So those are the platforms I'm prioritizing.
Interesting. Over the last year, my goal was I really wanted to crack YouTube. So every day I spend 3 hours to script, 500 words of an upcoming video. And if I've sort of got 4,000 words, just re-go over it. And sort of I try to spend 3 hours each day just on that. And I'm starting to see progress and I'm starting to see me really improve and get better. How do you have the bandwidth to then do the same thing for Instagram, LinkedIn, podcasts? Because based on where you're at, Caleb, you're going to be the one that's driving each one of these things. It's going to be your vision, your taste. Yeah, how are you going to have the bandwidth?
I'm not sure it requires as much bandwidth as maybe the assumption is being made. Meaning, I hire. So I guess it does take the bandwidth. It just might not take it from me. So I immediately, like a month and a half, 2 months into this, made a hire because I was like, I'm going to make content. Now the timing worked out. He had gone out on his own and everything like that, and he was building his own thing. And we had a conversation. I was like, cool. I knew that was going to be a huge constraint. There is not a world where I could produce the videos with the level of effort that I want to put into them while also doing building a consulting firm. Impossible. And we're already getting to a point. Literally, we had a call last week. Well, it wasn't a call, we were in person, but we had a discussion last week where we were like, it might be time in the next 2 to 3 months to bring on another editor, which is wild. That's insane. But like, we're past the point of Trevor and myself being able to pull it all off, right? And so it's like, I think for anybody watching or listening, the key is the moment that you or something becomes the bottleneck, you either need to change your process, your output, or your inputs. And your inputs are the people. So like, if you're filming a fuckload of content, but it's taking forever to get edited, you probably need to hire an editor. So I would just say you scale your bandwidth by hiring more people. And that's the thing that most people are terrified of, myself included, by the way. Like, I waited until I had the first year's worth of compensation for this individual plus next year's compensation already in the bank before I hired. Now, that's overly paranoid, I think, probably, but you watched the video. I had to fire 2 or 3 friends because I fucked this up when I was a lot younger. Lower stakes, obviously, but now I'm hiring people and it's their full-time role. This is what their life is. This is what's funding their life. And so I need to make sure that I do it properly,
What's your advice when it comes to having that first in-house hire? Something I'm comfortable with is like hiring people virtually, having editors overseas, people to help me with the podcast, people to help me with my YouTube videos, people to help reach out to guests. And even all those things, I'm on top of it, tweaking, watching, reviewing every single thing to make sure the thumbnail's right, the title's right, the email outreach message looks right, and it's contextualized enough where the guests won't think it's like a mass email. Previously, I wasn't on top of it, and I just sort of trusted everyone, and I do see the benefits of me actually being on top of it, and the extra detail has yielded, I guess, results. but I've never pulled the trigger and hired someone in-house. Obviously, it's much more expensive. Obviously, there's going to be someone 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. What's your advice there, Caleb? Do you recommend me do the Mr. Beast approach and create a clone, someone that can just shadow me and just have him follow me and help be basically my right hand? Any thoughts there?
What are you fucking up the most right now? That's what I would hire around. So for me, so we have an editor, right? That's kind of in the pipeline. We're like, well, maybe we need it. Probably not a full time, probably somebody that maybe they cut 5 shorts for us a week. Okay, cool. The next thing is I have notes from calls. I have introductions I need to make. I have things I need to review. I have my calendar to manage. And like I said at the top, I'm better than your average creative, I think, better than the average bear on that. But that's not my strong suit, right? Like I'm noticing that like there was something that I didn't get done before a call this week. And I showed up to the call and I was like, oh my God, if I had that EA that I've been debating hiring, we wouldn't have missed this, right? Or like I get a lot of inbound email and I'm the one personally responding to every single fucking email. It'd be really dope to have somebody that could help me with that, right? And so I just think look at what is the thing that is causing the biggest issue, the biggest problem, right? Because when you hire, you're not hiring just a role, you're hiring a solution to a problem. So what is your biggest problem? And what is the role that you can hire to solve that problem? That's what you want to do. So like I knew the first thing I'm going to want to do is continue to put out content at a higher volume than what I was previously doing, which was 0. So I want to post content. Well, am I going to be able to manage our clients and make content? No, I'm not. Not to the level that I want to provide the value that I want to provide to our clients. So what do I need? Well, the first thing I need to do is hire a content director. Cool, done. Right. And so for you, it'd be like, Andy, what is the biggest problem you're encountering right now? Right? Are you doing a great job managing your schedule and everything, but you're not following up with leads and you're not closing people? Well, maybe you need a part-time salesperson, right? Like maybe that's what it is. Or the next layer is maybe there's not some glaring problem. Maybe things are moving smooth. So what are the lower value tasks that you are currently spending your time on? Like, let's say, for example, you spend 15 hours a week on admin shit. Do you think that if you had 15 hours extra a week to either make content or hop on discovery calls, whatever it is that you do to make it rain, if you had 15 more hours a week to do that, do you think you could maybe make up the difference of the cost of that admin? Probably, right? And so that's Dan Martell talks about it a lot in his book. I think it's Buy Back Your Time or something like that. Incredible book. Highly recommend people read it. So it's not only just solving problems, but it's looking at what are the things that I am spending a lot of time on that aren't worth my dollar per hour rate anymore. He talks about calculate what your dollar per hour rate is, and anything that you're doing, I think it's something to, I'm going to butcher it, but basically it's like anything that you're doing that could be done by somebody at a lower rate, you should no longer do it. You should hire out. So if you're $50 an hour, you shouldn't be doing a $40 an hour task. I believe is kind of how he breaks it down. Definitely would recommend if you're listening or watching, read the book to make sure I explained it correctly. It's a really good one.
We'll pop it up. Thanks for the recommendation, Caleb. You talked about hiring and talked about sales. In your space with content, you're going to get ebbs and flows of leads coming in, interested in your sort of services. With your experience, is it best to hire someone part-time, salaried salesperson, or bring on someone commission only because of the ebbs and flows? What's your thoughts there? And especially as a creative, it's going to get to a point where you'd want to be just focused on delivery, not discovery calls, right?
Potentially. I'm going to be honest with you. I will never talk about shit I don't know. I don't know. I haven't been doing this long enough. I haven't hired a salesperson for me. So I don't know. I have no idea. I'll have a much better answer for you in a year and an even better one in 2 years, though. I love the question, though.
No, thank you for the transparency.
Always.
The next question I had was regarding training, and you talked about bringing someone on to pump out 5 clips a week, part-time. How do you sort of train them to have the same eye that you have? You talked about sort of if someone went ahead and if you listen to your 60-minute discovery call, you're going to know what is an evergreen lesson, that is value and has enough context to fit inside a 60-second versus something that's just a strategy that's trendy, like, hey, apply this thing today. How do you teach someone to have the same eye that you have?
Well, something you said earlier was when you got more involved in everything, you were, fine tuning everything. What I tend to do is I establish what's our make it versus break it. Okay. So what will break this video or break the brand? Okay. I define what that is given the context of the brand that I'm working on. So there's not a blanket answer to that. That has to be reverse engineered from the brand you're working on. And then that is my bar for what will cause me to say, make this change now. Let me explain. Let me also provide a little bit of nuance here. This is mainly for high volume content so that you have quicker feedback loops. When you're putting out one video a month, this works far less. And I'll explain what to do for those in a second. But in high volume content, I actually operate on if this won't kill the video, it's more than likely just a subjective call I'm making. So I'm going to note it for future reference. And that's what I do. So on shorts, for example, typically short form content is higher volume. With a shorts editor, unless it's like a spelling error, because I don't like those, that just makes whoever we're making content look for, or whoever we're making content for look really stupid. If it's not that, and it's not going to destroy their brand or completely invalidate the video, well then I'm going to put a note in Frame.io, for example, if that's what you use, that's what we use. I'm going to put a note saying, this is how I would do this differently next time. Don't worry about it on this video. Let's move forward. So let's say, for example, they did a very strange cut in, when you only have one angle and you have to punch in, punch out, punch in. Let's say they do some weird framing with it. And I'm like, ugh, I don't like this. But it's not going to make or break the video. Instead of slowing them down, bogging them down, and going back and making those tweaks, I'm just going to say, hey, love this video. Good job. For all future cuts like this, let's not punch in here. Let's make sure that the eyes line up and we go from 100% to 130% max, not 170. Thank you. What I find is this creates an immense level of momentum and makes it very clear what is and isn't actually important to the editors. Now, a missing piece that I didn't mention, and it's arguably more important, is I spend more time and put more comments calling out what they did right, what I want them to continue doing moving forward. Every editor who hears this or sees this is nodding their head when I say the following. They put so much effort into making these amazing videos, and they get a huge list of everything they did wrong and should do differently. They go to the next video and they're like, cool, I'll not make those mistakes again if they're a good editor. But they're left wondering, okay, what did I do in the previous video that I should continue doing? And they have to expend energy guessing what they should continue doing. A lot of the way that I lead creatives is trying to remove the amount of energy they have to spend on unnecessary dumb shit. And I would say trying to remember or debate whether or not you should do the roadmap graphic in the intro a certain way every time is an unnecessary use of their energy. And so if you look at the video that we released, if you look at the frame notes that I gave to Trevor, 2/3 of them are me calling out the things that I want him to continue doing. The cutaway that you did with Flex Lewis that gave context on how he's one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time, 7-time Mr. Olympia. That was perfect. And I literally said that was perfect because the majority of the audience has no idea who he is because they're not bodybuilder fans. So I'm saying, continue doing this. This is why it was effective. Okay. Not only am I speeding up his abilities, he's learning and now thinking about the edit strategically. That is how you can best transfer. Another way to transfer your brain or how you work is when they send you an edit for review, you could literally say, all right, before I watch this, I want you to watch it and then give me 2 or 3 bullet points on what you think I'm going to say about this. This is called calibrating, because then you go in and you say, bullet number 1, I agree with. You're dead on. Bullet number 2, this is not a big deal. Like, I don't care if we do all caps or lowercase, doesn't matter. Could care less. Number 3, yeah, you're correct. I don't like the right side of my face. I prefer the left side. Thank you. Boom. Now they know, okay, 2 out of 3 I got right. So now I know that they think about the framing, right? Like a lot of people that make content, they have a side of their face they like more than the other, right? As a side note, right? Like a random example. Well, you want them to know what that is, right? And so I prefer to try and calibrate with a creative which also means in the beginning, you have to spend more time with them just for osmosis, but also more time explaining the why behind a note, the why behind something. And the level three of this is you tell the creative, hey, I want you to ask me why questions about everything, even shit that has nothing to do with content. Like, I would argue that understanding the way that somebody's brain works and how they make decisions, how they determine what their preferences are and are not, will give you far more insight to be able to know what they want the caption to be than you just figuring out how they tweet, for example. You want to chunk it up to the bigger, again, principles versus tactics, right? You want to understand how they think, not how they would write a caption for a marketing post, you know?
So let's say you spend 6 months working side by side with this editor. 6 months in, finally the revisions are getting to a point where there's not many things to change, a lot of things you're happy with, and you want to go from one upload a month to two uploads a month, and you bring on a second editor. How do you go about, do you just have to repeat that whole process again and start from the scratch with a bunch of revisions? Or is there some way?
I have that first editor do it. I'm always trying to build leaders. Now, that doesn't mean people managers. I'm not saying like most creatives never want to manage a human in their fucking life, but a lot of creatives want to lead. They've just been told that leadership means all these different things that it doesn't. They've been told that leadership requires having direct reports. No, there's plenty of leaders that have no direct reports. I'm always trying to create leaders. So, like, literally, something that I always say to any team of mine when we're hiring somebody new, and like, let's say we hired Sarah and we know she's going to start, on Wednesday. On Monday, well, whoever she's going to work with more closely and intimately, I tell them, a week, 2 weeks out. And I say, hey, please start preparing so that you can help Sarah on board for the short form edits that she's doing and get her up to speed. Then I make sure the whole team is aware. Hey, we're bringing on a new member. Remember when you were new here? How like there was so much going on and so much context that everyone else had that you didn't? Well, let's make her first day even easier than yours. So any questions she has, answer them. Anytime she looks confused, let's volunteer to help answer any questions she has. Let's make this as easy as possible and let's all try to train and onboard her together, right? You have a very clear, structured onboarding where you have one person designated to lead it, but then you create a culture on the team where everybody is helping to onboard this new person. That's how I like to think of it. So in a world where you don't have a big team and you just have one editor, like you said, and then you hire a second editor, cool. Once you make that hire, you inform this previous editor, hey, I would like you to spend an ungodly amount of time with Sarah and bring her up to speed. Walk her through how you do edits. Then when she does an edit, sit down on Zoom. Don't just leave notes on Frame.io. Sit down on Zoom. Walk her through the notes. Explain the whys. All of that.
Is it possible to work with one editor to a point where you no longer have to review their work and you just know that, hey, like this person, the video is amazing. We can just upload it. I don't even have to watch it.
Yes,
Is that possible?
100%. I didn't review any of the short form for the last year. None. Trevor did. I really, and this is something that I got from Leila that was like so massive for me. You want to train people to think the way that you do and operate the way that you do so that you can level up to the next thing. And so, like with Trevor, I'm always trying to teach him what I'm currently doing so that then he can roll into that. And then I have the ability to expand up to the next thing.
That makes total sense. You talked about the shorts being a way to reduce the sort of feedback.
Real quick, I want to hit on that a little further. In the beginning, what that looks like is an obnoxious amount of time of us both reviewing videos together and asking him to tell me all the things that he noticed. And when we got to the point where there was nothing I was noticing that he wasn't, that's when I was ready to transition it over to him, to be very clear. And that took a while. And that took a lot of us literally just sitting down and reviewing videos and being like, what do you notice here? Oh, you didn't catch this? Okay. Well, here's why you should catch this. Right. And then now to the point where, like, I would argue he catches more shit than I do.
Yeah, I think that's really Good to hear because I guess I always felt that as someone that is creatively growing, you're always going to spot one or two things that is,
Hmm.
and it's going to be forever. But it seems like there's an end to it. If you put in enough work, it might take 6 months, it might take a year, but eventually they'll be spotting things that you didn't spot.
Yeah, and it also comes down to like relinquishing control. Like we have preferences. I have di Trevor and I have pretty similar creative preferences, but we also have differences. Like there's shit that we did in that video the first video that we uploaded that like would I do it differently? Yeah. Do I think I am God and I know that everything that I want to do the way I want to do it is the right way? No, not at all. I Not at all. There's some preferences that I do care about, right? So it's like I'll make that a note. I'll say like, hey, no, I want to film it this way, or I want to frame it this way, or I want to light it this way. But that's super rare. I give him the vision of what I want to accomplish, what the desired outcome is from it, and then I trust him.
You talked about the short form being a way to sort of shorten the feedback loop so you can sort of learn and collect data. Given that you already have a plan for what your next 10 YouTube videos are, you know the evergreen approach you're going to take, how's the short form, like what data are you going to collect from it? And how is that going to, I guess, play into your evergreen long form branding strategy?
I think I'm still trying to figure out our short form strategy, to be honest with you. So I am so tired of like the typical shorts. If you were to hang around with me for a week, what you would notice is that I talk about how annoyed I get with content that everybody's doing. I, for whatever reason, got cursed and blessed with getting bored of shit sooner than most people do. And so, like, right now, I'm kind of like in this weird point where I'm trying to figure out what is that next. Like, I feel like there hasn't really been much innovation on short form content in a while. I think Adrian Purr, I believe that's his name, OMG Adrian on Instagram, did a really good job of innovating storytelling and taking short form into like more of like a short film direction with educational content still. And I think he did. Are you familiar with him? Oh, you gotta look. Andy, you'll yeah, nerd out. Like he's an amazing creator. Anybody watching or listening should definitely go follow him and learn from him. But like I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what that looks like. And our first 10 shorts won't be that, right? It'll be us trying to figure out what that version is, how we can be innovative in the space. So transparently, Andy, I don't know. I think what we'll do is we will probably make 3 to 5 different formats and we'll put them out consistently and test and see what are the 2 or 3 that win or are leading the pack. And we'll start to double down more on that. And then inevitably, after 4 to 6 months of doing it, I'll get bored of that style. And so we'll try and figure out the next version of that. Right. And something interesting that actually, and I promise this is related, that Rory Sutherland said in on a podcast with Chris Williamson, Modern Wisdom, that I thought was fascinating. He talked about how data, we're in this age where everyone optimizes and makes decisions purely off of data, and how the industry, specifically within marketing and branding, is just they hold data as like the own, like this is the source of truth. This is like the predictive power. But what he said, and it's so obvious, but I was like, holy fuck, I've never heard anybody articulate it this way. He said, we're still making a ton of assumptions with data. When we make decisions off of data, we are assuming that the future will act as the past did. Nothing's going to change. Everything that we tracked in the past, all those variables are going to act exactly the same in the future. And the reality is even when you make decisions off of data, you're making really big assumptions, right? And so I don't believe when you are innovating and making something entirely new that people haven't seen before, you can't really go. There's leading signals with data and stuff, but like if you're actually making something nobody else has made before, you don't have an example to look to. There's no data, right? You're having to operate off of intuition. And I think, there's a lot of people out there that are really, really hardcore about like data is the only thing that factors into a decision. And then you got people like Gary that hold equal value to data and intuition. And I think he would, if you had a really long conversation with him, I think he would probably get to the point where he would say, my intuition is honed in by the data that I have taken in, right? Ultimately, gut feelings, I think, are just us recognizing a scenario that we've been in previously, taking in the information or the data on what happened, and our body being like, hey, this is a similar scenario to what happened previously, right? And so like that ultimately, gut feelings are data. So, again, a gut feeling is taking data from the past of how a situation went and assuming that the situation in the future will go the same way, right? And so ultimately, all of this, I would say, and ultimately Rory Sutherland, the godfather of marketing, would say that data is not perfect. It's not a perfect decision maker. So for me, with the short form content, we're going to be trying new shit. We'll put it out and we'll use the data to inform us of whether or not we are directionally correct. And I will repurpose shorts from my YouTube videos or from podcasts like this, but I want to figure out, what does Caleb Ralston's platform native direct to platform version of short form content look like? Not just mining from long form, but like actually sitting down to make an Instagram reel. What does that look like?
Talking about data, when you look at your last YouTube video, it's gotten 20,000 views, has a certain click-through rate, a certain watch time. You look at the graph, you see where the drop-off is.
7 minutes and 21 seconds.
What are you taking in from that? And is your goal being, okay, what can we do better to get 100,000 views next time around? How are you interpreting that data?
Love this question. I don't think I have enough shit out there to be able to take too many big investments off the data I'm getting right now. Like, you know, right now, like I think it's sitting around 721 is the ABD on the video, right? And like we have 66% of viewers at 30 seconds in. So that is one that I'm like, I want to improve that. Clearly my intro is not very good. Like I want that number to be, well, the next goal is 70%, then 73, then 76, right? And so on. I want that shit to be in the 75 to 85% range. That's where I'll feel good, right? My shit isn't for everybody, but like the people that click on it, I want to hold them. So that's really the only thing that I would say from the first video that we've gotten data-wise that I want to try. Where people fall off, it's like, this is a unique video. It's me talking about my career, right? I extract lessons, so it's value, it's educational, but is it the same as like what future video? No. And on the flip side, the video we're going to drop next is a very unique video, is how I will put it, to put on YouTube as one whole video. It's absurd. So like it won't make sense. What I will probably say is this will be I don't know when this is coming out, but
In
I
6 weeks'
test
time.
6 weeks. Oh, okay. So it'll already be up. So actually, this will be at the point where I make the decision. So the video is live right now. We've uploaded the entire thing as a whole video. Since this is going up after it's live, it's probably around 5.5 to 6.5 hours long. And yeah. And I'm going to test whether or not that was the right move, or uploading all, because it's a 4-section video, all 4 sections as individual videos. Now, all of my YouTube strategist friends are saying, upload the 4 videos. Like, duh. But I'm like, this is bigger than optimizing for YouTube. I am trying to make a statement. This is a brand play more than an optimization. Everyone's going to be like, why did you? It's like, because what competitor of mine dropped a 5.5 hour video on how to build a brand that is a course that they would feel comfortable selling for 10 grand, and they put out completely for free? So now that I know when this is coming out, I'm mentioning what it is. It's a fucking course. It's a full course, 39-page outline that I wrote on how to build a brand. And there's not, like, the next video after that will probably be like an hour to 90 minutes. So it's not going to be the same. So the learnings are going to be different. You know what I mean? Like, I think I will take micro learnings, but mainly the learnings are going to be off of our intro and thumbnail. And that's probably about it right now. I probably won't get much more learnings than that until we're about 5 to 6 videos in. Now, I will get learnings on my communication. So what I do is I look at the comments to see, what did people understand and like? Cool. I'm going to keep hitting that shit over and over. What did they not understand? Okay, watch the moment. Oh, I see. I was very confusing there. Let's make sure to explain these kinds of principles or these stories in a more clear, concise way. And so that's where I go into the script on the next video, or the outline. I don't really script, I do more outlines. And I will take that into account. So for me, I'm a verbal processor. So now we've gotten to the point where I can answer your question properly. The learnings that I will take are on the opening 30 seconds retention to see how can I increase. Like the other thing is I think more people will probably view this video, so my metrics will be skewed too. So, but I do want to increase the opening 30-second retention percentage. So I want more than 60% or 66% of viewers to be watching the video after 30 seconds. The other thing is I will probably gain learnings on the thumbnail, and what we can do within the constraints that I've given us on how we want to go about our YouTube thumbnails. And then thirdly, I'm going to learn on my delivery. So the comments is what I'm going to look for. What did people not understand? What did they push back on? Right? Like what can I ensure? It's almost like I think of making really good educational content in a very similar way to creating a very good VSL. A very good VSL takes in the information from the sales team on what the objections are on the calls and overcomes those objections on the VSL before it ever happens. I want to overcome the objections of my audience before they reach the comments. This increases trust. And so I would say those are the three things that I'm learning from the YouTube videos for right now. Damn, it took a second to get there.
No, thank you. I love that answer. 5 to 6 hours, that's like quite an investment of your time, energy, editing.
I spent 15 grand on it, and I spent 3 weeks every single night, every weekend, writing the outline. We went out to LA to film it and then rented a whole studio and everything. Filmed it over the course of 3 days, literally 30 hours of studio time. Yeah, we put a lot into it. And I mean, dude, the majority of people that watch it, they're never gonna buy anything from me. They're like, I really genuinely just want to help people. And this is where we're going into feisty, Caleb. I think there's a lot of motherfuckers online that make these kind of courses around the same subject matter that are full of dog shit advice. Not only is it not valuable, it actually sends people down the wrong direction. So not only did they invest in the course, invest their time in consuming it, they then invest their resources and time into acting on the bullshit advice that a lot of these fuckers are giving. And it's bullshit advice because it's just laddering them up to the next ascension program within their fucking 10-step which there's nothing wrong with that. But there is something wrong with knowingly taking advantage of people. And I think a lot of my counterparts do that, just honestly. A lot of people that have agencies, their agencies aren't profitable. They make their profit off of their info products they sell. And I don't think they're as valuable. So I was like, well, what would be a good brand move and a big statement? Let's take what they make and sell. Let's make a better version of it and then put it out for free. But that's me subjectively saying it's better, by the way. We'll see. The audience might be like, dude, this was dog shit. And I could have invested, it was more than 15 grand, but that's what I'm comfortable saying publicly. I may have invested that money and time for no reason, and it may just be a great learning experience for me. Who knows?
What's the name of the video? What is it teaching? What's the course about?
Well, we're 2 weeks in or 3 weeks in to it being live. So if it didn't go well, we probably changed the name and title to test it. Dude, I don't even remember what the name is. I can find the document for you real quick here.
Oh, I
I
think
don't, off the top of my head, I don't remember what the name is. We're just calling it How to Build a Brand.
how to build a
Um,
brand. Got it.
but it has like an actual YouTube name for sure. I just genuinely can't remember it off the top of my head.
And then with the 6 hour course, was it all just evergreen content where you wouldn't be talking about stuff like organic marketing, Facebook ads, YouTube? Because in 5 years' time, all those things might change. Or did you include those things in?
No, I did. I did include those things. If those things fundamentally change in the next year, I'll just make a new one. You know, I also make sure to qualify. Like a lot of times I say it's a fucking reoccurring joke. I'm like an old dad saying the same joke every time, but I literally will say like Tuesday, March 11th, 6:36 p.m. Pacific time. This is relevant. Like my first big boy job, as I mentioned in the video, was editing a mobile education course. What I didn't really go into was it was seminary PhD level individuals. And the smarter you are, the more qualifiers you add so that people can't pigeonhole you into being wrong. So that way you can always explain yourself away as a joke. But I like to give that qualifier so that people know this is relevant right now. I have no idea if it will in a year. But yeah, like it's mostly principle-based thinking applied to current platforms.
When you sort of talked about trying to figure out the short form strategy, the thing I thought of is like, how have people like artists, singers created catalogs of songs that people consistently go back to, play again, listen again, movies that you watch on repeat and you really get to know the actors and the directors, or books that you read again and again. I think books are less common for people to read again and again, but I guess mainly music and movies, TV shows. Like, is there a way to do the same thing when it comes to content creation, creating a catalog of work that people consistently come back to watch again and again and again? Because, like, I've never rewatched a Mr. Beast video twice.
I think it needs to be so strong in the utility department.
Mm.
So for education, that is, here's what you need to do to change your actions, right? That's it. That's what education is, changing people's actions. So if they felt like, damn, there was 10 things, I did 2 of them and they worked, they're probably going to go back and rewatch, I would guess. I would say for entertainment, I think, did it provide the correct escapism I was looking for, right? And as a side note, I think that sad music when you feel sad is a form of escapism. I really do. People would say it's leaning in, but yeah, like, yeah, it's leaning in. Like, you're escaping your current moment and going into whatever sad moment they're bringing you into. And I think that a lot of times on entertainment, it's things that we have like a high emotional attachment to. Why we do, I don't know. Like, I couldn't give you the answer to that. But I think when it comes to educational content, how do I make something that people come back and watch over and over and over again? Something that is truly, truly deep. It's not surface level, right? To use an entertainment example, there's plenty of films that you could watch 3 times and not pick up anything new because there's nothing below the surface. Meanwhile, these like really heady thrillers, you might watch 3 or 4 times and start noticing new things about characters or a detail in the frame, right? And I think if my hope is that this course, it's like your first time watching it through, you're going to pick up some shit, but you'd have to watch it like 10 to 15 times to truly get everything that I share in it. That's the hope. And so I think it's the level of depth, right? Like all of these fucking 25-minute videos on YouTube that people are calling master classes. Ain't nobody coming back and rewatching that shit. And I'm not talking about the duration. I mean the level of detail and depth that you give. That's the big one. Like I realized in making this course, I rewrote the outline, I think like 4 times. First outline was like 5 pages. Then it was 10, then 15, then 39. And it's like, I didn't realize the level of depth that I could go into on this subject matter. And that's why I produced a 5-page outline the first time. And I think a lot of people just stop there. And that's why it's not a repeatable or something that you want to rewatch over and over again. But I think the 39-page outline version of a video, hopefully, is one that people will want to continue to watch over and over and over again and share with their team, that kind of thing.
Interesting. When you talked about creating this more evergreen, sort of lesson-based content, not really focused on strategy, that's sort of finite, creating content on broad topics like brand building, hiring, persuasion, mindset, could you attract and sell a high-ticket offer when talking about these broad things versus here's a manual bidding strategy on how to scale your Facebook ads. Pay me 20K if you want to learn more.
I think both.
Mm.
So like this course gets fucking granular, very granular, right? Like I walk through my hiring funnel. I talk about what kind of character traits you want to look for in hiring a creative. Like we get pretty fucking granular. I think the best version is when you do both. It's not an or game. It's a yes game. And so I think, yeah, I mean, I could dance circles around it, but really you just want to do both. Like, I think that the more in-depth, more niche content is definitely the stuff that's going to convert better, right? But it might not be the thing that attracts people the most. You almost want to think of your wide content almost acting like lawyer advertising, right? Lawyers advertise all over the place. And like, when do you need a lawyer? Never until the moment you do. And John McLaughlin Law Group. It's on my drive every single day. Well, fuck it, I'll call him, right? I think your wider content is more like that. It's more making them aware of these broad problems. And then your deep content is showing how you solve those problems in depth, giving proof and establishing trust that then I believe trust is the currency that precedes the transaction. So you increase trust and increase the likelihood that they'll transact on your offer.
And with that and mindset, what's your thoughts on keeping everything under one Caleb Ralston YouTube channel versus having two or three different channel for those different ands?
I think if you have a big budget and a big team, cool, go the multi-channel route. I ain't gonna do that. I just don't have the resources for it, you know? And let me back up. I could do that. We could take that approach, but it would pull resources from areas that I deem as higher value. So, like, I think on the flip side, if anybody has a massive direct to consumer or CPG brand watching or listening to this, I think having 20 accounts is the right move. So, in a world where we went from TVC, where you make a vanilla piece of content trying to reach everybody, to then we went to social, where it was like you make individual pieces on the same account trying to reach a bunch of different people. Now, the next version of this is you make 20 different accounts trying to reach those 20 different avatars, but you never show the other avatars on those. So you're never putting people off. You're only bringing them in more and more. And I think that's the new world. But for 99.99999% of creators listening or watching, they'll never be in a position where that is realistic or makes sense. Unless something drastically changes with AI, and in which case all bets are off. But as of right now, as of Tuesday, March 11th, 6:44 p.m. Pacific time, nah, I don't think it's the right approach for most.
And off that topic, would it be better for you to have the two different styled videos on one channel and it being a month apart, and then having a monthly upload schedule on that one channel versus having two channels but just having a 2 month sort of upload schedule individually on both of those channels where you're putting in the same amount of work, your output is still one video a month. Yeah, thoughts?
Depends, I think, on the difference in subject matter and the goal. So, like, if video one is talking about aquariums at home, and video two is talking about my fantasy basketball picks, probably different channels. But if it's like talking about aquariums at home, and then my second video is talking about my favorite fish in the wild, well, those seem pretty related enough that it's okay. So I think this is where it's tough making content because you have to make a lot of assumptions. I have to make a lot of assumptions of what the people listening are. So that's where I want to give you kind of the frame of how you make the decision. If it's closely related, cool. But like if I suddenly, like I had a period of time where I was making Harley videos for fun as like a passion project with my buddy. If that reignites in me in 6 months and I want to start making Harley videos again, I'm not going to upload those to my main channel. I might upload videos of me writing and talking about brand and content, but if I'm making a video where I'm breaking down the $40,000 conversion I did on my Harley Davidson 2021 Road King special, I'm not going to put that on my main channel. I'll make another one for that. Does that help like give kind of the framework of how to make this decision?
Yeah, it definitely
Okay.
does. Thank you, Caleb. Talking about frameworks and I guess goals, looking at Leila and Alex and both of their brands and both of their channels, I'm assuming they have the same team, they have the same goal with their content, but Hormozi is, oh, different. Okay.
Yep. If I have two clients that I'm serving in an in-house team, I prefer, in the beginning, you have to build it as one team that serves both. But very quickly, I actually like to separate them so that they have sole focus on one brand. So that when they're going for a walk and an idea pops up, they're not having to be like, who does this go to? It just goes to the brand that they're working on full time. And I think if you're ever in a scenario where you have two people that can be the public figures for a company, and they're building their personal brands. It doesn't always have to be this way, but I think a good strategy for a season is to actually have different goals. So like for example, you could have one person who's making content publicly to attract customers, the front end. The other person could be making content to attract talent, the back end. You're both bringing leads in that you're running through a funnel. It's just one is front end, one's back end.
Another question I had when it came to hiring and building teams, Caleb, did you hire a lot of people locally in-house? Was it offshores? Have you played around with getting editors in, let's say, the Philippines or Asia? What's your thoughts on sort of hiring creatives?
Well, you got to do what you can with what you got. So, one, I want to acknowledge that I'm talking from a frame of being able to work on teams where I have budgets that are significant to be able to hire people in the States. We can pay relocation packages to make it easier for people to move from New York City to, Las Vegas or whatever. So I want to get that qualifier out. We can tackle people that don't have access to that after this. But if you do have a budget and you are able to, the best case scenario, in my opinion, is to have a mix on your team of in-person and remote. And the best version, in my opinion, even for the in-person, is a hybrid approach where you don't require them to be in office every single day unless their role requires it. If you're a videographer and you film with your boss every single day, well, then yes, you do need to be in office. If you're an editor, maybe you only need to go into the office once or twice a week and you can edit from home the other days. Um, I prefer uh, to have people in the States. One, just because time zones. I really like if I need to hop on a call with somebody, being able to do that fairly quickly. I think that's important. I like people being full-time in-house because I want them basically what I said about separating the teams and having them, all their discretionary effort and thoughts go towards one brand. Well, it's the same. If you hire a freelancer, they're splitting you between or they're managing you along with other clients. And like, cool, that's what you're gonna have to do in the beginning. But the problem is suddenly you run into this scenario where like their ideas are either they're playing Russian roulette on who this idea is going to go to, or worse, they're applying the idea to everybody. And that's just not what we want. So I like people stateside. I've hired people internationally for sure. Like one of my favorite editors I've ever had is located in Denmark. Like absolute savage. Oliver, just a beast of an editor. Sponge will learn so fast, learns everything, wants to learn everything. Yeah, I've worked with teams in the Philippines. I think they're great. I think as long as there's the obvious things of like communication barriers, language, like that's one thing that I've noticed that is a huge problem is not understanding the context of slang, things like that. So like, you know, somebody listening to this might laugh when I say this, but like when you have to comment correcting slang on a video, it sounds like it's a little thing. And it's like, well, if I'm saving a couple $100, every week on this person, it's worth it. But if you add that up over a year, it might not be fucking worth it. Okay. And so there's that. I think usually when you bring somebody in-house, there's more of a long-term mindset. And so I think that there's more long-term alignment that occurs there, and they're more incentivized with what you're wanting to accomplish long term, not necessarily short term metrics. So yeah, I think I'm a fan of doing it in-house. Now, I building my own business am probably closer to where a lot of people are, which is I have a team of one. And then what I will do is when we go to hire an editor, we will hire somebody freelance, part-time, probably to cut 5 clips a week, like 5 shorts, right? And then as more needs surface, if all of a sudden I'm like, man, graphic designed carousels are murdering on my Instagram, then I would probably hire a graphic designer part time. And if all of a sudden I was like, I have 40 hours of work on this a week, cool. As long as I am making enough, more than enough on what they are doing and producing to not only cover their cost, but add more profit to the business, then cool, I'll do that.
I love that answer, Caleb.
So real quick, use freelance and agencies, do trial periods to test this out. I'm gonna not invest in hiring a short form editor full time to then learn maybe short form isn't my thing. Well, fuck, that sucks. Versus hiring somebody freelance where it's like they have other work coming in. I'm not, fucking up their entire life. I'm also not incurring my costs of hiring and then potentially having to fire somebody because I made a hire without validating the concept. So hiring freelancers allows you to validate things before you make the long-term investment.
Caleb, you having worked with multiple different personal brands, is there a framework for figuring out and creating your own unique taste or niche versus me or the audience waiting 6 months. Let's wait 6 months. Let's watch what Caleb does with his short form until he figures it out. Once he cracks the code, we're just going to follow what worked for him and we're just going to copy that.
I'm not sure I totally understand the question.
I think the question stemmed from, okay, Caleb is going to spend a lot of time and resources over the next few months to figure out short form. He's going to figure out what works, what doesn't. He's going to test. And it'll be cool to follow along, follow his socials, see what works, what doesn't. And once you see something that works, okay, that seems to be working. Let's do something similar. And then I took a step back. I was like, oh, like, actually, I'd prefer to learn a framework on creating my own taste, creating my own sort of unique identity and brand versus that approach. And I initially defaulted to that first approach because I don't know, maybe it felt easier.
Hmm. I think the major. I love this question, dude. It's a real thinker. My mind immediately went to 98 or 99% of people listening or watching. It'll take too long for them to do that. So don't. Actually, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to go aggressive. 100% of people listening and watching should not do that. I didn't do that. The way I learned photography is I picked 5 photographers that I really admired and I copied the fuck out of what they did. I ended up becoming friends with a couple of them and showed them, and they're like, yeah, you really were fucking copying what I did. But then, after I got the skill of being able to duplicate what they did, I started iterating on it and developing my own taste and preference. In the beginning, I didn't have enough information to even develop my own taste or preference. So the majority of people that are listening or watching, maybe they've even been creating content for a year. I would argue most of them probably still aren't at the point where they really know. So what I would say is instead of copying one creator, which everybody does right now, pick 2 or 3 that you admire that are doing fundamentally different content. Like, for example, a type of creator that I'm looking into hardcore right now is comfort creators. Guarantee nobody expected that. That is something I am studying heavily. I think that's a big emerging like space within the influencer world and all of that. And I'm trying to take note of that. And so I have 3 different people, and I'm not going to mention who they are, but I have 3 different creators that I'm like, okay, I'm going to copy these elements of their content. And once I get that down, well, I mentioned one of them. Adrian is one. Like I'm totally fine mentioning that. Like Adrian Per is one where I'm like, yeah, I want to figure out like if I can just replicate your style, maybe in a slightly different way, but mostly just replicating it. And then by doing that, I'm going to learn, I don't like this for me. I don't like this part for me. So I think you start to learn your taste in the beginning on what you don't like. And then you start transitioning to like what you do like. And I think it's just combining a bunch of. Have you seen that series on Vimeo that went viral like fucking 10, 15 years ago that was Everything is a Remix? Oh my God. I can't recommend it more. Gotta watch it. I haven't been on Vimeo in forever, so I don't even know how you would find it. But just Google like Everything is a Remix. It is incredible, dude. It walks you through all these different bands, like 70s rock bands, and how a lot of them just ripped off like old blues artists and how literally and films, all these things about films where it's like basically adaptations of old books and stories. And like it even gets crazy and goes into religion and talks about how like a lot of different religions are just recycled versions of other everything is a remix. And so like there's nothing wrong with that. I think what is super wrong though, and what I hate, especially in the business creator space right now, is everybody is copying one person and they're all looking the same. I would encourage you pick 2 or 3 and pick elements that you like of what they do, copy that, and just by doing that, copying elements from 3 different people, you will inherently have your own unique thing. And then by doing that over and over, you're going to start to see like, ah, I don't like how I sound. Like I copied Mr. Beast's intro style, but I hate the fact that I start every video yelling at the camera. So now I'm going to tweak that, right? And so that's when you start to be able to make the iterative process. And that's when I think you start to hone in on your taste and preference. Now, something that, an exercise that I think people can do to help develop their taste and preference, and it's going to sound funny, but like live your life and call out things that you like and don't like and why. When you're taking a shower, look at the tile in your shower. Do you like it? Don't overthink it. Just like, do I like this? Yes. Why do I like it? I don't like it. Why do I not like it? If you do this for a week straight, you will be far more calibrated to what your actual preferences and taste is because it's there, it exists. You just don't know how to articulate it. And so I believe that this is a great way. Like, I mean, you could do it, fucking grab your phone, go to dinner with like 20 friends and fucking have everybody pull out their phone. I like your cover or your case. I don't like yours. Why do I not like yours? Well, I don't like when people do like on the nose weird character shit. So your Hello Kitty case, I don't really fuck with it. But yours, Andy, I like yours because yours is black and clean. And I like things to be minimal and I prefer neutrals. Well, fuck, I just established a lot more of what my aesthetic preference is right there. So that's more so, it's easier to do that with aesthetics. I would encourage you to do it when you watch the news. That anchor, do you like their delivery? The person being interviewed, how did you like how they responded to that? Right? Like, oh, they're so smiley and warm and friendly. I like that. Oh, shit. I want to be smiley, warm, and friendly in my content. I do this all the time, right? I at the beginning, I talked about how I observed what I categorize Mel Robbins as the cool aunt. Well, what do I want to hold? As of right now, I'm thinking like the older brother or the friend of yours that's only 2 or 3 years older than you. I'm not some old wise sage that's lived a bunch of life that knows all the answers. I'm somebody who's been down that road maybe 2 hours before you, and I can tell you, oh, there's this pothole here. If you take a right, a left, you'll avoid this massive intersection that will take 20 extra minutes. I can give you that, right? So I'm observing a preference that I have on how Mel communicates to her audience, and then I'm figuring out what's my version of that. Does that make sense?
It does. A follow-up question on that last part. When you said that, I was like, okay, I could totally see it being easy for me to talk to the audience as if I'm talking to a younger version of me. Is that the right approach if I want to do the older brother approach, or should I be trying to imagine me talking to a bunch of people that are of all races that are younger than me and me trying to be their older brother?
So I love this. Me using the older brother frame doesn't mean that I'm talking to ugly, bald, bearded white guys. And it doesn't mean that I need to be older than them, more
Mm,
experienced.
mm,
I am more experienced than a lot of people that are 10 years older than me because I started really early. I'm 31 years old and I've been doing this for 16 years. Most people that say I've been doing something for 16 years are like 46,
mm.
maybe in their early 40s, right? And so like that's how I'm thinking about it. It's more like I've been down this road already. You're a couple miles behind me. Let me inform you of the issues that you're going to run into and the things that you could take advantage of that I've observed. That's the frame. And by the way, that's not the frame for all of my content or my brand. That's the frame for how I want to communicate on my podcast.
Talking about short form, and I think the audience could relate with me, I went through a period where every single day I was posting a story or a reel, and I was just copying what worked. I looked for outliers. I copied montages of the exact same cuts, the exact same songs, the same type of clips, storytelling using the same hook, educational content following the exact same format, the exact same length, doing interviews, and nothing popped off. I think I did it for like 400 days in a row. I was like posting stories every day and reposting the stories that got the most views onto my reels. Maybe that was my mistake. I should have just posted everything on my feed. What did I do wrong there? Where I was copying what works and nothing got more than 10,000 views.
We're talking about 400 days.
Mm,
You didn't go to day 401. That's
mm,
it. Now, there's more there, obviously. Like I think you said nothing popped off, but I guarantee, let's say every video was averaging 313 views. There's a video that got 439, 517, and there's also videos that got 105. So the big thing is like you and everyone listening would be blown away at how many brands I work with that like one of the first things I do is I look at what are you doing and posting that we all know doesn't work, but you're still posting. Eliminate that. Like if you know that your tweet reels, a screenshot of a tweet that you put out over a fucking photo or B-roll footage. If you know that's not working for you, why are you still posting them? If the answer isn't that, well, everybody on a sales call always references my tweet reels, well, okay, yeah, cool, keep them. If none of your customers are referencing it and nobody's engaging with it, stop fucking posting it. Also, if something did do better than other videos, well, what can I do to replicate that? Now, you did 400 days. So of those 400 days, I guarantee a minimum of 15 to 20 videos outperformed the pack. They went above benchmark. So then, Andy, what you need to do is sit down and go, what did I do across a minimum of 75% of the videos that occurred in all 75%? So let's use the arbitrary number of 20. Okay, so that would mean that 15 videos stood out, right? Or 15 videos had one or two things that you did across the board. These are called principles. What a lot of people do is a video pops off and they're wearing a red shirt. So they're like, aha, I'm going to wear a red shirt in the next video because no. What you want to do is look at your top performing content, ideally your top 10%, and then list out, and it's usually one, two, maybe three at most, things that occurred in all of them, or at least 75% of those videos. And then what you have there is a list of principles that raise the odds of your videos doing better. And if you do this every month, and every month you look at the new top 10%, you're always iterating off of your best content. Where most people, they don't do this. Most people don't iterate or innovate anything. They just keep making the same shit. The ones who are iterating and innovating on it, well, they're doing it off of just their general content, not their top 10% best performing content. You don't want to be optimizing off of your Bobo shit. That's not going to help you. Cool, you took it from a 1 to a 2. That's not what we want.
I love that. Caleb, if you, Gary, or Alex were able to download Mr. Beast's brain and your next video could be a guaranteed banger, 50 million views, but it's going to be a general video like, let's say, a game competition between 10 business owners. We're going to coach them, give them the fundamentals, and the winner will give $1 million in funding. And you know it's going to be a banger, but it's going to be a more general video. Would you go down that route, or would you still go ahead and create that niche video within your expertise, targeting business owners or targeting your ideal high ticket clients?
For me, I would do the latter. Just because that would cause me more harm and headache because I would have to allocate a ton of my time and resources towards managing communications, because I have this inherent need to reply to every comment. And so that would be a real problem for me. So, I mean, if you're asking for me as an example, yeah, I don't have any mass market offerings, so I wouldn't want that. If I had a book that was a mass market book, then fuck yeah. I think Gary would get the most value out of that, personally. The books that he has kind of cover multiple different subject matters. So I think he has a more wide offering there. Yeah, I think it just depends on what your offer is. The wider your offer, the wider your content needs to be. The more narrow and niche your offer is, your content should probably follow.
Given that they both have low ticket offers, would getting the most amount of views be one of their goals? And if so, wouldn't creating some crazy video like I gave away a Ferrari to someone who did AY be the approach?
Yes, it just the way that the top entrepreneurs that I've observed think is, what do I get? So I make this really wide video that gets 50 million views, and now there's all these people that are going to buy my least profitable, lowest ticket offer. Versus I get far less views, but a higher percentage of those viewers transact, and they not only transact, they transact on my most profitable high ticket offer. What are you going to choose? And so more often than not, if their goal is revenue, not fame, then they're going to go with the latter, almost always. And the trap that a lot of people fall victim of is they make something that goes wider, performs well based on platform metrics, and they're not tracking conversions on their site. And so they start following what the platform tells them to do, not what their business is telling them to do.
Mm.
And oftentimes they're not the same. Not always, but a lot of times they're not. Like videos that lead people to go to a $25,000, $100,000 workshop aren't going to be the same videos that the entrepreneur on TikTok is going to watch and like, you know? They're different. And so a lot of people end up following what the platform is telling them to make, and they build this amazing big audience, and they aren't making jack shit off of it because they're optimizing for the wrong goal.
Interesting. Talking about sort of the info space, stuff like people teaching agency, people teaching e-com, dropshipping, Facebook ads. How do you go about, like, it's so hard to balance a profitable agency while creating content and selling an info product on that. It's nearly, is it possible to do both? But if you're a fan of focus and you want to do one, you really couldn't go all in on YouTube because, as you said, it's inauthentic because now you're letting go of the agency and that's sort of what you're teaching. But then if you go all in on the agency, you know how hard that is and you know that money is being left on the table and you probably enjoy consulting and info products more. It's sort of, you're making more money for less work. You're selling your knowledge, you're selling your brand. So you're sort of at this crossroads where it's like, what do I do? Do I try to struggle and balance both? Do I go all in on one and come off as inauthentic? Do I just give up on my dreams of becoming a personal brand sort of guru and teacher and just become this invisible person that just focuses on my agency? Yeah, what's your thoughts there?
I think the people that retire and start just teaching, it sucks because they're only going to be teaching to a certain extent. Like their knowledge ended the moment they retired.
Mm.
Like a lot of these teachers teaching these things aren't doing the thing anymore. And for the first 3 6 months, cool, they're still relevant. But a year, 2 years in, is what they're teaching still relevant? Probably not. So I would argue, except for probably a few different subject matters, industries, whatever, to truly be dangerous and actually a very valuable good teacher, you still need to stay in the game, right? Like I could have just gone straight into just purely doing one-to-many teaching, and that'd be great. But I would lose the tip of the spear information I get from working with bigger brands, and my education would not be as valuable. But the fact that we're working with brands so big that, some of them, I won't even disclose, I'm still fucking in it. And I'm able, if I were, and I'm not right now, but like if I were to do like a one-to-many call once a month or something like that and charge for it, I'd feel totally fine doing that because I'm always going to be talking about up-to-date information. So I would argue that the best version of this is that you always keep some skin in the game. I mean, something that Gary has with Vayner is like executives will write tweets for clients. He wants everybody making and creating and being dangerous and being in the weeds on it. So that's kind of how I want to operate, is like, I want to do the same thing. And I would encourage people to always keep an ear to the ground, know what the fuck is going on, right? Like things, the people that teach social media but aren't working with any clients or anything, what do they know? This shit changes week by week, month by month. It's not like it's like, cool, what worked last year is still, no, everything's changed. Everything changed from fucking beginning of the year to now. And it'll change between now and fucking Friday. That's a little exaggerated, but you know what I mean.
Does that mean the retired agency owner that is working with one-on-one clients and helping these clients today grow their agency, is that more aligned then?
I do
Because
think so. Yeah, I think that as long as that, like, as long as they're feeling the impacts of the decisions, that's the key. Like, part of our offers is not that, like, I'm gonna hop on Zoom and join you for a film session. We don't put that in like deliverables. But I just do it. I'll surprise and delight clients and be like, hey, you have a shoot on Friday? Send me the invite link. I'll hop on Zoom and join. Part of it is just, I want to be supportive and show them my care and stuff. But two, like, I want to always be figuring out new things that I can do to make a great film environment. And if I see a lot of different film environments, I'm going to pick up a lot of different things. But if I just talked about how I created a great film environment for the last company I worked for, and that was it, and I never talk or gain information on new teams and new environments, well, then I'm just rehashing one thing. Whereas, like, no, I want to be, it was described to me as like the tip of the spear. I want to be in the tip of the spear. I want to be like at the forefront of shit. And then any educational shit that I'm putting out, my free content, if it's ever a paid thing, it's off of that. It's off of me being in the weeds, like, hey, this is what we're doing for the big dogs right now. Here's how it can translate to you.
Got it.
I think it's so much more valuable.
So a flywheel that any retired business owner could do is create content on their past business, attract clients, help those clients get results today, create content on them helping those clients and attract more current clients, and the whole time they're not actually doing the business themselves personally.
Correct. Nailed it.
Mm.
I'm gaining, I've only worked at one place at a time. Like, this is the first time in my life, well, not first time in my life, but first time in the last 10 years that I've had multiple clients. And the learnings are absurd. It's wild. With one client, I'm learning, okay, well, the person they have filming their content is not the right person. Here's all the reasons why they make a terrible environment. The other person, it's like, oh, you're just crippled by the fact that you want everything to fucking get a million views every single time. Like, that's what we need to tackle here. Dude, the amount of like, it's crazy. So yes, if you are working close enough on a consulting level with your clients, you're still gaining those learnings. You're still in it. Gary calls it being dangerous. I want to always be dangerous.
Talking about different environments, big fan of Gary. I used to watch all his daily videos, his daily V's. I think I started at one and I think I went up to like probably like 150 or something. And obviously the videos were much older, but I just wanted to start at like episode one. But his videos haven't been popping up on my feed as often. Last night I sort of did the social blade. I saw that Gary was pulling in 1.7 million YouTube views a month. Then I went ahead and checked out Alex Hormozi's channel. Alex is pulling in like 14.5 million a month. What's happening there? Does Gary have a different goal? What is maybe Hormozi doing better to get more views? Being in both environments, could you give context behind the difference in I guess, reach?
Gary doesn't make platform native content for YouTube. Like, I've never met a busier person in my life than Gary. Like, his calendar is mad. And he doesn't allocate time to sit down and film a YouTube video. He is not a creator in any way, shape, or form. He is a businessman who is having what he does documented. If you want to blow up, you have to make content contextual to the platform and what the platform wants. Gary uploads videos where he talks about 10 different things. So how do you title it? How do you package it properly? And how does the audience know what I'm clicking on? Right? It is the best for short form, being able to mine all these different things, but it's not very good for long form. So it's not that he's doing anything wrong. It's just that that man is building a massive agency. Huge. By far well, I guess Constellation Brands, I guess it's the second biggest company I've ever worked for, by far. He allocates, I mean, dude, they're the fastest growing independent agency in the world. They have offices all over the fucking world. His time is going towards that far more than it is to the Gary Vee brand, from what I know. So, like, I don't think it's that he's doing anything wrong. It's just he is deploying his resources in a different way.
Given that
He's putting energy towards Vayner making a Super Bowl ad that gets billions and billions and billions and billions of impressions.
Given that you've worked side by side with Gary, with Alex, I would have thought that coming out of it, building your own personal brand would have become second nature. You would have had the whole blueprint laid out. You would have known exactly what to do. Yeah, I would have thought, like, if you've helped, say, two people get a six pack, you'd know exactly what to do to get a six pack yourself.
Yeah, I am the dentist with bad teeth, the hairdresser with terrible hair, the personal trainer that's fat. And that's why I hired Trevor. And when we started, I told him, I said, dude, I know exactly what to do for anybody else. But like, I'm gonna need you to tell me what to do. Because I can't, I don't know why, but I can't view myself in that frame. So like I was like, do we need to get photos? Do we need to like literally was like an infant starting from scratch with myself. Because right now I'm not at a place where I can view myself in that light. I still have that stupid mindset that nobody gives a fuck what I have to say. Nothing that I have is interesting or valuable. And there's definitely no world where like I should be making content on multiple platforms. Like I'm having to fight myself. A piece of content that we're working on right now is actually talking about this because like, a lot of people in my space, they just are like, make the content, post it. And now I'm like, no, I get it. I understand. There's a lot of overthinking that I'm putting in towards this. I can't remember if I said this already, but like that first video we ran, dude, the day before, I told Trevor, I was like, let's not post it. It's not good. It's fucking terrible. Like, nobody's going to get any value out of it. Like, not good. And he was like, I've already scheduled it. Do not delete it. So, yeah, I don't know why. I mean, it's like the whole thing of like, we give everybody else great advice, but we do a terrible job of adhering to our own. And I think that's what it is. So I'm trying to like, when I have those dumb thoughts, I'm like, what would you tell somebody else? Well, do that fucking thing.
Caleb, tell me about Trevor. How did you go about finding him? Where did you guys work together? How did you go about bringing him in? What is his role, and what was your thought process behind bringing on your sort of first team member?
I met Trevor via a character by the name of Tyler Babin, who you probably know of if you watched the old Daily V's. Um, Babin's the best. I love Tyler. And there was a gig that he had that he hired a couple of shooters for. He hired me, he hired Trevor, and one other person, and just got to know each other and thought, oh, this kid is ambitious and hungry, clearly. And then before I even moved to Vegas, actually, I had this side project that popped up, and I hired Trevor as a freelancer to handle all the short form edits for it. And he did a really good job with it. And then when things were ramping up with the team, and as I was building it and the output was increasing, I was like, well, shit, I can't edit all of their content anymore. I need help. So I hired him as a freelancer. Then I made a full-time hire on the team. And then I turned to Trevor and I was like, hey, we want to make this a full-time role. Would you be interested in relocating to Vegas? And he said yes. He did it. He came out. And he's just a savage, dude. I poured so much into that young man. Like really spent a lot of time working with him. Incredible human, somebody that like any team he's on, people just inherently trust him and just share whatever with him and they'll be vulnerable. And so, like, worked with him. He oversaw all short form content and literally just was murdering that shit. And yeah, I went out on my own and started building this. And then, about, I think, like a month and a half or so later, he decided to go out on his own. And he came to me. We were talking. And he was like, dude, I want to make a bet on you. And that was the craziest thing in the world, dude. When he said that, I was like, what the fuck? Like, that's insane. I don't know why you want to bet on me, but okay. He saw something, I think, in me that I didn't see in myself. And yeah, so we talked about it, and he was like, if you think that this will be valuable for you, then let's do it. And I was like, oh, I know it will be. I have zero doubts about that. I'm honored that you want to do this. And yeah, rest is history.
That's beautiful. I think another thing that stood out from your last video was your view on being a manager and sort of what you didn't like when you were sort of being managed and sort of um, doing it differently. And I guess to no surprise, this was the result. Someone coming to you and being like, hey, like I want to bet on you, I want to work with you.
Yeah, yeah. And like, I think what I try to do in leading creatives is create high agency, right? I want people to be able to be autonomous and be able to think for themselves. A lot of people run creative teams with SOPs and checklists. And I think those are important for quality control. But if you build a checklist army, you're building a team of robots, and ultimately you're putting more work and strain on yourself. And so I really believe that if you invest heavily in them becoming their own gangster, I mean, the amount of things that I would teach them that I'd be like, this is helpful on the team here, but this will impact you in your career for the rest of your life. This is a skill that you can take and now forever will be able to earn more because of this skill. I was always trying to tie what we're learning into how it impacts the team right now, but how it impacts them as an individual forever. And that's just, I love them. Like when I'm building a team, man, I do not believe in calling it family. That's some fucked up weird shit. But I do love everyone that I've ever hired, genuinely, and care about them. Like I try to stay in contact with everybody, always. People that were on the team for 3 months, 4 months. I try to hit them up a couple of times a year and be like, hey, how are things going? How can I support? Like, I think these are the things that go beyond just like the tactical bullshit that everybody talks about. And it's like, these are the layers below. When your team is sick, instead of assuming that they're trying to play hooky and just have a day where they watch Netflix all day, actually believe them and send them a fucking cold pressed juice or send them a, Panera bread and soup, something like that. Like these are the little things that I think create far more powerful and loyal teams than a lot of the, one-on-one meeting tactics that people talk about.
Makes sense. One thing I saw from your last video was the clip about how Gary was like, hey, if you want to get to know my team, come hang out. The whole team Gary is here from like 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. And I was surprised, like, does that mean like Team Gary is like they're from 8 a.m. to like 10 p.m. every day?
I can't speak to what it's like now, but when I was on the team, not everybody did that, no. But there was a select few of us savages that, yeah, we were absurd. Like, I would say, I always want to make sure that I don't over estimate and I don't round up. I always want to round down, but I feel pretty damn confident in saying that I was averaging 14 hours a day. Average. Yeah, like there was a good group of us that like we'd show up at somewhere between 8 and 9 and leave somewhere between 8 and 9. And like a lot of times I tried in the morning you could never do this because the subway was too busy, but like in the evenings when it was empty, I'd be editing on the subway. It's an hour, and I'm not driving, so I'm maximizing it. So yeah, like when I was on the team, fucking savage culture. Again, not everybody did that, but I mean, dude, Andy Krainak was there every fucking night. David Rock was there every fucking night. Tyler Schmidt, Sanaa Darris, like fucking Jason Marina, like Katie, Alex, like so many people just putting in the work. And yeah, yeah. So I would say a lot of people do put in that effort.
One thing that I was curious to know from your last video, you talked about how you transitioned from like Team Gary to like Empathy Wines and how you moved to Las Vegas. But I didn't get the story of what sort of then transitioned you from finishing up with Alex and going off on your own. Yeah, what was the catalyst there? Did you just feel like, yeah, that was missing in the story, I felt?
Yeah. Well, honestly, dude, I did that interview that you referenced at the beginning of this call, Backstage Careers, with Jeremy Mary, and it popped. It did fairly decent. And the amount of crazy inbound that I received over the next 2 years after that went out was wild. Brands that I've dreamed of working. And I was very focused on what we were building. And I put all all of my time and attention towards that and not spreading my focus amongst other things, side projects, anything like that. And so it just got to a point where I was like, holy shit, I just keep ignoring these things. And I am scared that maybe I won't have another interview that pops off and I'll never get these opportunities again. And I'm going to be the old man that's like, you fucking dumbass. You never scratched that itch. You never saw if you have what it takes to do your own thing. You never checked if you got the chops. And so it came down to that. It was like, yeah, I want to make sure that I Gary talks about this a lot, removing the amount of opportunities for regret when we're older. And that's one that I know that I would regret. So I was like, hey, let's take the chance. I have a lot of support. Um, Gary is unbelievably supportive and has always said, like, hey, you always have a home here, if you ever need a fallback. I mean, who gets that, right? And so that also gives me a little bit more boldness to be able to go out and try my own thing or do new things. And so, yeah, that was the main catalyst for it. I didn't want to regret not taking my chance.
I love that. Being in the marketing space, I remember bumping into this person that was behind blowing up this creator named Luke Belmar. And you hear things about creating hundreds of TikToks accounts, using VPNs. You hear other people talk about AI generated clips, just put in all your content and just pump out many, many clips and just like upload 10 times a day across 100 platforms. Affiliates, what sort of Andrew Tate did with like the whole building an affiliate sort of system. What's your thoughts on all these things? Is it gimmicky? Is it short term? None of the big brands, big entrepreneurs, they sort of keep it simple. They just have one brand account.
I think this kind of goes to the conversation of if you have a bad product, you have to do an insane amount of marketing. If you have a great product, you can have pretty simple marketing because the product will do the marketing for you. There's your answer.
Thank you so much, Caleb. Last two questions I usually always wrap up this podcast with. One, any recent discoveries that you've been implementing to your day-to-day life?
Have you seen Jesse Itzler's big ass calendar going around? Okay. I bought one, and this was the first year of my life where I planned a vacation ahead of time. It was crazy. It was amazing. I've never done that before. And that was amazing. So I would say the thing that I'm trying to implement is planning cool things ahead of time. My whole life, I've been like, well, I can't do that. What if something comes up with work? And now I'm like, whoa, crazy concept. You plan the things you want to do, and then you make work fit around it. 99.9% of people hear me say that and they're like, yeah, that's how humans work. And I'm like, oh, news to me. So that's a big one for me.
Did you go ahead and book the flights, book the
Oh yeah,
accommodation?
everything.
Oh,
Non-refundable.
I love that. Last question. Any personal goals for the next 6 months, not work related?
Yeah, to stop being fat. So I'm not fat. I just like to be ridiculous. I I've never talked about this publicly, but at the end of November, I suffered a fairly gnarly concussion. And leading up to that point, I had really gotten back into lifting again. I used to compete in powerlifting in high school, was obsessed with it. And off and on since then, I've had, seasons where I'm really serious about it and others where I wasn't. I was coming up on about a year of just like really dialing it in. Like my strength was going up, I was getting pretty lean and everything. And then I had this concussion, and the doctors said, do not push it. And so I just recently got cleared to start lifting again. And so I'm on this is week 3 of being back in the gym. And so I think for me, that's a big personal goal is like trying to get strong again. Strong is relative. So all the big, Brutuses watching, I'm not nearly as strong as you, but strong for me. And then also just, getting a little bit more cardiovascular health so that when I lean over to tie my shoes, I'm not out of breath.
What's one takeaway you got from shadowing Gary and one takeaway you got from shadowing Alex?
I'll go Alex first. Alex, the level of effort that you need to put into a product to make it great. I saw him write 19 versions of leads, and that reset the bar for me on what it takes. From Gary, man, there's so many. I think the one that I will say, there's a lot, but I think the one that I think is most important is that doing the right thing is always the right thing, even when it's not in your short-term advantage. And I get tested on that a lot. And I just always try to think about that. Doing the right thing is always the right thing. And yeah, I'll leave it at that actually. Like doing the right thing is always the right thing.
I love it, Caleb. Caleb, where can people get more of you?
Oh, well, if you want more of me, something is wrong with your brain. Um, if you do, for whatever reason, want to consume more, my website is calebralston.com. I'm at Caleb Ralston on Instagram, at Caleb Ralston on YouTube. I think the same on TikTok. Pretty much anywhere where I am, I'm my name. So you can just search it. And if you don't find me, then I'm not doing a good enough job yet, and I don't deserve your follow. So I will do my best to earn that, and then maybe we can come back and get that.
I love that, Caleb. I was just thinking back to the email I replied when you were like, hey, what are the topics that we'll talk about? And like, I think we went in a completely different direction, which I love. It's always organic, but when guests ask, I try to give a vague idea, but usually I just sort of take it by the energy of the guests and let them guide the conversation and organically sort of come up with questions that you knocked out the park, every one of them. So thank you so much. I love how authentic you are, how honest, how transparent, and how relatable you are. And the fact that you're always trying to sort of get to the why. Like when I'm asking questions, you're asking why that is so and trying to answer with a framework. So I really, really appreciate that. And I loved our conversation. I learned so much. So thank you.
Thanks, Andy. You asked really good questions, dude. And I love how you're very good at being able to come up with the next question on the spot like that. That's a real skill, dude. So thank you for asking such great questions.
No, I was just super curious, and you have a wealth of knowledge, and that's what generated all the questions. I think the questions definitely come in parallel with the wealth of wisdom that you bring to the table.
Wow. We can go flowers for flowers here.
Thank you guys. If you made it this far, please let me know your thoughts. Hopefully you guys got some value today. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for making it this far, and I'll see you guys next week on another episode of the podcast. Peace.